Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports.
When it comes to Texas A&M,
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
I need to talk a little sports with you, Ags. David Nuño here with TexAgs Radio. Billy Liucci here on TexAgs Radio. Olin, Buchanan.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
Do you realize everybody knows who you are right now?
I think we're coming into this year with a new confidence.
Schools are like, we're freaking Texas A&M, man. Like,
that's about as pretty a throw-catch combo as there is.
I saw the safety roll, the slot fade. I knew where I needed to put the ball.
You had no other option but one hand at that point.
Yeah, man. 50-50 ball, I got to come down with it.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
Big weekend ahead. Let's pontificate for a minute. Obi, join me in this.
Okay.
By the time Monday comes around,
Monday.
Monday, maybe have a defensive coordinator,
Maybe.
strength and conditioning coach.
Hopefully.
Maybe the Aggies beat Memphis, and we're feeling much better about. We should feel better after the last game against DePaul, but maybe they win.
Feeling even better about the trajectory of the basketball team.
Yeah, women's team wins, right?
Boy, they've won like 6 in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe your Cowboys
Oh,
win.
that would be awesome to beat the Eagles.
And then
not just to win, but to beat the hated Eagles.
And then the Texans. I know you're not a Texans guy, but they're.
I don't dislike the Texans. I like C.J. Stroud a lot.
I do too. Maybe a lot of those things are very possible by the time we get here on Monday.
That could be amazing. What an amazing weekend it
Well,
could be.
after what weekend was it this past week? It was terrible. Yeah, I think it was this past weekend. The Texans got into it. We're losing guys left and right. It'd be nice. Oh, and maybe potentially transfer guys saying, "I'm going to A&M."
Or how about some really key players stepping up and saying, "No, I'm staying."
I'm staying. Or some guys that are in the portal being like, you know what? I'm too much of an Aggie. I can't do this. I want to stay. In fact, I'll take a pay cut to come back.
I wish I'd won the lottery because for a myriad of reasons, but one of them would, had I won the lottery, I don't think any really good players would be leaving.
Well,
someone once asked me, you would actually, when the lottery's like $1 billion, I said, hey, I'm the king of NIL. And they said, you would give money? I said, look, I'm 62 years old. How much time do I have left? I would spend all that money on things that make me happy. What would make me happy? A&M winning championships.
Beach house would make me happy.
I could watch them win championships from my beach house.
Huh. You know,
in fact, I'd take them to my beach
There's
house.
a lot of millionaires already involved in this. If this scenario were to come to fruition.
And I asked them, what would make you happy?
I think they're doing a lot towards it. They're doing quite a bit.
Maintain your happiness.
By the way, Coffee Talk presented by TexAgs Coffee. Beat the hell out of morning by going to texags.com/coffee. I'm actually enjoying a little bit of the TexAgs coffee as we speak. Olin, we live in this information age where like people need news every 5 seconds, like refreshing. And by the way, I do it too. Like some of the stuff that I'm not privy to, like hey, is Luch giving us an update yet? It is like, but let's just rewind it. I don't know. 2010. And social media was around then, and obviously TexAgs was around then, or maybe 1999. We weren't getting information the way we get it now, right? Like it would take a little bit of time,
Yeah. I can remember the days when I might write an article and then I'd be sweating out until the next morning to hope that like the Dallas Morning News didn't have that information.
Right.
And now it's like you better, as soon as you know it, you tweet about it, sometimes even before you write the article. But if you write the article, you put it out there on Twitter you still got to do the reporting.
Right.
But it's the way it's delivered, and now it's such the race to be fast that you call it the information age, and I would maybe call it the misinformation age.
I saw Bronny's tweet yesterday. He put some stuff on the boards, and apparently people already had copied it and used it for their own information. And unfortunately, that's part of the world we live in now, too.
That's plagiarism, though. You would wonder why what is like digital journalism, are they immune from plagiarism?
They are.
And why?
Well, I have a source too. I talked to the same guy that Bronny talked to.
Yeah, it's hard to prove otherwise.
Hard to prove otherwise. But those who know.
You know. To me, the refreshing, especially when it comes to A&M, when you say you refresh it to get more information, it's like I call Billy again. That's how you refresh. Hey, Billy, you sure? Okay. You heard anything? Or Bronninger. Hey, Bronny, any good news?
Howell? Hello?
Howell?
We love Howell. So bottom line is I do think some of these things are going to happen. They have to happen soon. But, again, I feel I don't remember much of the Fran era. I mean, I remember what I remember, but I don't remember how the timelines were when he was picking his staff and whatnot. And that's when I was here, by the way. That's why I bring that up. But I do know the Jimbo era quite well. And I remember how long things dragged out. When are we going to get this OC? Oh, okay. When are we going to get this DC? Okay.
Again, and we talked about it last week, and it turned out to be really accurate. Mike Elko may already have his DC.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of it may have already been agreement. Sometimes it's just you got to wait for the right time to announce it because sometimes there's money where the guy's contract says, hey, he's got to pay this much if he leaves before this certain date or after he gets so much after. So you're waiting for that date, that contract. There's all kinds of factors involved. I believe, just like I believed Mike Elko already knew his OC, I believe he knows who his DC is.
Or it's between one or two dudes, and they're trying to figure that out. No, I think so too. And I'm curious. I think would you agree the response to Colin Klein has been very high, right?
It's been what you would hope it to be. I think Billy, he was talking to you, right? And he made an amazing point when he said, look at the reaction at Kansas State and compare it to the reaction from LSU when John Chavis came here and say, I'll take him. Well, or Florida State, even people say, all right, it's,
he's won a championship, but,
as things go on, and it's like, I remember one time Texas hired an offensive coordinator from Georgia. And what I heard from Georgia was, hey, we'll help him pack.
Right.
Thank you. But there's weeping and gnashing of teeth in Manhattan, Kansas. And I don't wish that on them. Good people up there. But
it's interesting,
but it
though.
Tells you, gives you an idea of what they think of him.
But it's very interesting, too, perspective, right? Like when Florida State fans were warning A&M, to us, it felt like sour grapes.
Yes.
Right? And we're like, this dude's won a championship, and he did it with Florida State's resources, with A&M's resources. Watch the bleep out. That's what it felt like.
That's what it could have been.
And should have been.
Should have been.
But in retrospect, you're like, a lot of the things they were telling us was correct. So I think it's sometimes a little bit in the middle. It's not necessarily the doom and gloom, but sometimes people are set in their ways. And when you're set in your ways, you don't evolve, and who you are is revealed even more.
It's true. That's what we've said. The genius of Nick Saban, the most successful college football coach ever, was his willingness to evolve and not to be set in his ways.
What he has done this season is, I made a comment on this show, 2021. I don't think this dude's winning another national championship. I said that, right? And I felt pretty good about it because I didn't think Alabama had the teams to do it. They had the quarterback to do it with Bryce Young for sure. And then this year came, I'm like, I thought 9-3 level of team.
And they're very close to being that.
But this dude, with his witchcraft, like even if you don't think Alabama's one of the 4 best teams in the country, because there are some that don't believe that they are one of the 4 best teams in the country. He's in the freaking playoffs again.
He is, and he might win it, even though I'd take Michigan. But you know what? Give Alabama all the credit, but I still say one of the biggest things that Alabama has going for them is just the mystique and the way opponents just melt because they're playing Alabama. For instance, the Auburn game, they're losing to a team that lost to New Mexico State, right?
Yeah.
And they're punting, and this New Mexico State player backs up, falls down, fumbles a punt, and you're like, You know why he did that? Because he's playing Alabama. And the pressure of having to make the play because we're on the verge of hitting Alabama. It's like the guy that misses.
Wait, New Mexico State, Auburn, you mean?
Yeah, Auburn.
Sorry, I thought you said
Auburn saying we're on the verge of beating Alabama. And this guy falls over his own feet trying to field a punt. And then when everything still goes against you, you have a coach that's too afraid to make a play. So he just says, hey, Auburn coached and played themselves out of a big win. You say Alabama could have been 9-3. They could have easily lost to Auburn. Auburn let them off the hook. They could have lost to A&M. A&M let them off the hook.
But that's what I think championships do. Championship teams make you. It's the mystique. They make you second guess yourself because,
Alabama's the ultimate spider.
Texas,
by
the way,
just waiting for you to get in their web and then they kill you.
Texas should be 9-3
easily.
U of H, Kansas State. What else?
Was it TCU? Was a real close game.
It wasn't like one of the bad teams early on, like their third, right after
Wyoming.
Wyoming, yeah.
That was a real close game going into the fourth quarter.
Right. So that one they weren't going to lose, but that's what Georgia. They're not in it, but they had their close games, right? Like Michigan, I don't remember how many. I guess the Ohio State game was close. Penn State wasn't.
Should be though.
Yeah.
I think they had a game just before Ohio State. Who was it? Wasn't Rutgers, but somebody that they only won by like a touchdown. But yeah, you're looking ahead to Ohio State. I get that,
But that's great. Teams.
Washington.
And
did you see how Washington had to survive Washington State
100%.
and Oregon State?
I know talking about Ole Miss is not fun here, but Ole Miss at 10-2, a couple games they could have lost, including Texas A&M.
Yeah, A&M's a lot of near misses.
If you want to be a part of the conversation, you can do it multiple ways. Go ahead. I felt like you were going to say something. I felt like there was a thought coming.
I wasn't. I'm still just. Whenever I think about the near misses of the last two seasons, you can't get away from the fact that when it happens with so much regularity, you have to figure out, it's not a coincidence.
Near misses, which is. Let's go through some of them real quick before we give out the phone number. App State, that's where it starts, right?
App State, Alabama up there, Alabama here, Tennessee up there, Ole Miss. I even think Miami was a near miss, but they lost by 2 touchdowns. So if you don't include that, fine. Auburn up there, which is atrocious.
The worst offensive game. Yep.
Just South Carolina. Up there, you stay
17-0 hole.
Yeah,
and you still had a chance.
2 years ago, LSU there.
Oh gosh, Damani.
Robbed. You got to overcome that.
Is that 8 that I've come up with?
Well, easily
because
they lost 5 games last year by a touchdown or less.
But in those near wins, there were plays that should have been made that weren't made, or timeouts that weren't called, or it was just...
Or personnel that should have been on the field that wasn't.
Or personnel used in some kind of way.
Or heinous special teams because you don't have to... Look, it was a failure of coaching. That's what it was. The players played. They were in the game. Close games typically are won and lost on the sideline.
So we've got people watching and listening. We got Kathy listening in Granbury.
Hey, Granbury Pirates. They beat us once when I was in a Crowley Eagle.
Jeff listening in Pinehurst, North Carolina, North Cackalack.
Don't know where Pinehurst is, but North Carolina is a beautiful state. We know that from our time in Charlotte.
Brian listening from Aragon, Georgia. I didn't know there was an Aragon, Georgia. Did you?
No.
Okay. Let's see. Lubbock, Coach Dub listening.
Hey.
Look at we're slowly becoming Pate State without being Pate State. We'll have our own name. I don't know if slowly is the right word.
We're global, though.
Yeah, we are global.
We're global.
Costa Rica, where are you at? 979.
I know El Salvador's out there.
Oh, of course.
I once saw somebody the other day. I actually saw this. It was something about, it was the people that believe the Earth is flat, and they put out a tweet. Literally, somebody and says, what do they call themselves? The
flat earthers.
Flat earthers, whatever. And they said, and we have flat earthers around the globe.
Around the globe.
Anyway, so that's us. We're gonna be like flat earthers, and that we're gonna have people around the globe that's following us.
Following us all around the place. And
I know Qatar. We got a lot. Or do you call it Qatar or Qatar?
I think it's called Qatar, but I call it Qatar.
Yeah. Don't. You think they got a lot of people in Qatar that play the guitar? Do you think in there doesn't A&M have a campus there?
I don't know.
I think so.
Okay. I believe it. We're global.
Global.
979-693-1150. I don't even know if I've told you the show. Like, you may not even know what you're watching or listening. It's TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. It is the Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Call us up, text us up. We've got an hour to
Tell
go
us where
here.
you're from.
Yeah, you can tell us where you're from. And we're not going to give you an award or any secret prize
We're
today.
acknowledge you.
We're just going to give you props. 979-693-1150. You can call us. You can text us. If you call us, we'll pick it up on the Brian Foley Law hotline. Let's right now go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Hannah, hello.
Hello, good morning.
Wow, I liked your hello. That was not like, that was a confident hello.
Oh, we're excited to be here this morning.
We are? Who are you representing when you say we?
Me, myself, and I.
There
and
we
you.
go.
I know you're excited to be here too. And OB.
We're very happy to be here to talk a little Aggie sports. What do you got cooking over there?
All right. Well, men's basketball, they had a big win over DePaul. They won 89-64 last Wednesday, boosting their record to 7-2 on the season. And on Sunday, they'll be back in Reed playing Memphis. Women's basketball also taking a win this week against Lamar, making them 8-1 on the season. So Joni Taylor's really racking up the wins. They're going to be facing Robert Morris tomorrow in Reed. And then baseball, they dropped their full season schedule. So we only have 70 more days before they're taking on their first opponent of McNeese at Bluebell.
All right.
Yeah. Is that McNeese? That's not Broninger's old alma mater, is it?
I think he did go there, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. By the way, I don't want to make this a daily occurrence, but I love what I'm seeing on the YouTube page alone, okay? And I know our TexAgs.com, and I know people on the zone are listening all over the place in CW, probably in the Brighton College Station area. We've got Odom, Texas.
The Odom Owls.
Azle.
The Azle Hornets.
Cradle. Well, Joplin.
Joplin, Missouri.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Langley. Hampton, Virginia.
Hampton, okay.
Yeah. Hinsdale, Illinois.
Never been there.
You should. Signal Mountain, Tennessee.
That sounds like a place I'd like to visit.
Lubbock, Texas.
I like Lubbock. Lubbock is they've got a good music scene up in Lubbock. Lubbock's not as bad as people say.
I'm gonna keep giving you more. Lake Charles, Louisiana.
I've contributed to the local economy there more than once.
Strake, Florida, right outside of Gainesville.
Okay.
All right. Honolulu in the house. What time is it in Honolulu?
Aloha.
What is it, like 3 a.m. there? What time do you think it is?
Let's see. It's 8 here, so I would say it's about 3.
What are you doing awake,
Maybe
bro?
4.
Okay, that's fine. We appreciate you. Olin's Basement's here.
Yeah.
Temple, Texas.
Bastrop Bears.
Yeah. Wow. Mineola
Yellow Jackets. I scored 2 touchdowns in the stadium at Mineola.
Well, Kingwood, Texas in the house. Allen, Texas. Okay,
Allen.
I can't read them all because then we'll lose all of our people listening around the world. But thank you, gentlemen and friends and ladies, everybody listening. Thank you very much. Obi, let's take a break. When we come back, you're smiling.
No,
you're thinking something. You had a funny. You had a funny.
I really don't. I'm just. I had my monster today, so I'm in a good mood.
You don't see Monster. When I've seen you in Monster, you're like Kramer, just like all over the place.
I'm energetic.
You are a mixture of Larry David and Kramer. I wouldn't say George Costanza, but you are a little bit of Kramer, and you're definitely a little bit of Larry David. That's a compliment, by the way.
Yeah, there's a compliment and an insult in there, all wrapped together.
All together. All right, let's hit a break. Friday at Fargo's.
Mm-hmm.
Friday,
4 C's.
Fargo's, 2 F's.
Yeah, and then 4 C's.
2 F's and 4 C's.
Sounds like my report cards. 2 F's and 4 C's. But I love those 4 C's because you get the catfish, the coleslaw, the corn, and oh my God, those crunchy hush puppies.
I did a fake on the coleslaw. Not a coleslaw
Yeah, I know.
guy.
I like coleslaw, especially with a lot of pepper on it.
But I like Fargo's. So, like, if I'm going to eat coleslaw, it'll be at Fargo's.
And I can go there today and get those 4 C's and, maybe even feel like I'm acknowledging, my religious beliefs. And if not, If that's not the way I go religiously, I still have all the barbecue favorites there.
It's not like going to I probably shouldn't say, like, you can order what you want when you go to Fargo's. They don't just have like a dictator there telling you, nope, you only get the special today.
No, no barbecue for you, no soup for you.
Right.
No, it's for everybody. We got the barbecue, we got the ham, we got the beef, or whatever. I don't know if they have ham, but the pork. But if you need to, for whatever reason, not have meat, or because of religious thing, or just because you like catfish, you got the 4 C's today to go with the 2 F's.
Oh, 4 C's, 2 F's.
Yep, like I said, my report cards.
1701 South Texas Avenue, without a doubt. What?
The best barbecue in Texas, i.e., the globe.
It happens to be their trademark.
It's true.
It happens to be true. It's TexAgs Radio, and we're talking Fargo's. I don't know why I messed that part up. Check out Fargo's.
Free ride.
TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Look, we're not going to do a live look unless he wants to. But, Nick is not running the show today.
Really?
Nick is teaching
Teaching Nick.
He's like Mr. Miyagi,
Professor Nick.
right? Like and you know who's running the show today?
Luke.
I am not your father, Luke. That's for sure. But your father does listen to the show.
Yeah, he does.
Oh, he speaks.
He speaks.
He speaks.
He learns.
Howdy,
he
good
speaks.
morning, y'all.
He does it
Oh,
all.
what? I didn't think
and
you were
now
going to talk.
he makes
No,
an
it's okay.
appearance.
I'm good now.
How do you feel in that spot?
It feels good. Nick's a great teacher. He's back there.
He's
helping
right
Kenny
next
as well. He's good.
You told me earlier you had nothing to say, but now you have to say something.
I just wanted to say howdy, good morning, and see what Nick's reaction would be.
That's how he talks. That's true.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing a great job, I assume. If not, Nick will tell me after the show, and we'll have to deal with the consequences.
Yeah. If you're not doing a great job, we'll find somebody who will. But there's no pressure.
By the way, it is the Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at
CNC Creations.
CC Creations. That is correct.
Well, I always put that CNC. I don't know
That's
why I
all right.
do that.
But
CC.
you know where to buy your gear.
Yeah, I've bought a lot there.
Yeah, I got a lot of TexAgs
Like that
stuff.
TexAgs shirt you're wearing right there. You can get that at CC Creations.
CC Creations got it all, buddy.
Yeah.
They're fantastic. All right, it is now, we're running our mouths. 3 things that we want to see, brought to you by the Brazos Running Company, your local Aggie-owned specialty running store, where you can find Brooks on Hoka shoes, located in Century Square below the Star Cinema Grill in College Station. All right. OB, do you want me to start, or do you want to start?
I want to see A&M shoot that from the 3-point line the way they did against DePaul.
Yeah, I like the way you speak.
Do it like you're doing it against the Ringo and the George and the John.
Yeah. By the way, you sound like you read my notes. But go ahead.
Really? Okay. So that's number one.
Okay.
I want to see. I don't know if I will, and I may not. Man, I sure would like to see Boots Radford back in the line. Boots. You know, I mean, if you want to kick some butt, you need to have boots. And then I want to see a full Reed Arena on Sunday to see those. I mean, that's a good opponent, Memphis.
Very good opponent.
And that'd be a really impressive victory if you could pick it up.
So here are mine.
Okay.
I'll go in the reverse order that I have written down here. More outside shooting versus Memphis. I really like the good 3-point shooting because everything opens up for this team when they do that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Opens up Henry. It opens up Wade. You know what? With that defense, you hit your outside shots, you win games.
Yes, sir.
I would like to see a transfer of substance saying, I'm coming to Texas A&M.
That would be fun.
Somebody who visits this weekend, potentially somebody in the portal's like, ain't no question. I'm a starting DB. I'm a starting wide receiver. I'm a starting offensive lineman. I'm coming to take my talents to Texas A&M. I don't care where, but I'd like to see somebody of substance this weekend say that they are coming to Texas A&M.
Come on. There's great things waiting for you here.
Great things. Very good
Great things.
And then I'd like, if it's appropriate timing, for a defensive coordinator to be named this weekend. I would like to see it. I don't need to see it, but I'd like to see it.
I bet you they have one in place at least before signing day.
Yeah.
I remember
December 20th, not far away.
I know. It's not far away at all. I remember a few years ago, A&M had a linebacker from the Dallas area that was really interested and thought to be leaning towards A&M, but they wouldn't announce the defensive coordinator. Turned out to be John Chavis, so he went to Texas.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Who was that linebacker?
Jefferson.
Okay.
Can't remember his first name. Jefferson.
Well,
but I remember reading all the content about it and hearing from the guys who covered recruiting for us at that time. What was that? Was it Malik? Was that his name? Malik Jefferson?
that sounds familiar.
Seems like there's a lot of Maliks out there now.
Well,
that was become a popular name.
Bottom line is I'm going to allow the process to take whatever time it takes because I think there is urgency across the street. There's a plan, and there's action behind that plan.
I do have to say that I've been impressed with the way Mike Elko has gone to work. And, think about this. How long has he been on the job? A couple of weeks?
2.5 weeks, maybe, right?
And he's made coaching changes, some what I think are positive changes to remove certain coaches and then to add coaches. He's been active in the portal. He's been visiting high schools and building relationships, or I should say rebuilding and repairing relationships.
Yeah.
And greeting his team, meeting with his team. He's doing all kinds of recruiting. I mean, you wonder how this guy has enough hours in the day to do the things he's had to address, and he's doing it.
There is, I'm sure he's working with adrenaline, and I don't want to say tunnel vision because tunnel vision doesn't feel like, but putting his head down and just going to work.
I bet he's drinking some of those monsters.
You know what? I don't think he needs them. I think he's just built to do this. This is what he does.
I bet he's drinking a lot of coffee, if nothing else.
I like coffee.
Yeah, I know you do.
Coffee's pretty good. You know, I do half calf often.
Often,
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I want to have more. That's my philosophy. I don't know if even that.
Is there more calories in caffeine?
No, it has nothing to do with calories. It's just I don't want to have over a certain amount of milligrams. You know, how I am. I'm weird.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you know I'm weird.
Well, I know you care about all those milligrams.
I do care about milligrams. Yeah. All right, let's hit a break. When we come back here on TexAgs Radio, we will talk a little hoops. Let's talk a little hoops for a minute. And we can get more into football. By the way, let me give everybody a little update of what we have on the show. I haven't done that yet. Mark French at 9 o'clock to talk.
Mark, he's a good dude.
He is great. He's going to join us at 9 a.m. Jamie Morrison, another good dude.
He is. Man, he makes me interested in that volleyball team.
He's a guy I would hang out with. I like Jamie. He's not my kind of people.
Yeah, I like him too.
Another guy I would hang out with.
Who's that?
CT. Chris Taylor.
Chris Taylor.
Would hang out with him for sure. Mark French as well. The next guy after
CT's a lot taller than Mark French.
Is he?
Yeah, a lot taller.
The next guy, not sure I would hang out with him a lot. Billy Liucci. Kidding.
I wouldn't hang out with him a lot because he just doesn't want to hang out with me.
We'll have Billy in here for the 10 o'clock hour.
I'm not a big enough celebrity.
We've got that to get into here on TexAgs Radio. I want to talk a little Ascend Concrete. Don't replace it, lift it. Ascend is locally and Aggie-owned and operated concrete lifting and support company providing an easy service at half the price of replacement. They are problem solvers when it comes to concrete issues. So like when, you've got older folks at home and you've got like the driveway and then part of it is lifted, they can just lift it, right? Like they can make it even. Isn't that great? And it's exactly. Most people don't know you can do that, and you can get it for a lot cheaper than replacing the whole concrete. I got a buddy in Dallas who replaced his whole driveway. It's like $15,000. It's not a cheap thing to do. You can do that for half the price. They're honest, over 60 years of professional construction and concrete experience. Brian Dickerson, a best Aggie owner and operator, as I mentioned. They want to educate you about the lifting process and the materials that they use so you can completely understand and feel comfortable with Ascend Lift. They tell and show you why concrete tends to settle, poor soil conditions, poor compaction, tree roots, and drainage. The service area is local, state, and nationwide. They'll go everywhere. 979-933-8527. Ascend can raise and stabilize any form of concrete slab. Once the project is finished, the appearance is close to seamless to the eyes. They got residential, they've got commercial, they got industrial, municipal. It is Ascend. Fraction of the cost for replacement. Free estimates, locally owned and Aggie operated. Follow Ascend Lift on Facebook and on Instagram or call 979-933-8527 for an appointment. That's 979-933-8527. They're called the Band?
The Band. It's Levon Helm singing there.
Very original name.
The singing drummer.
What year is this roughly?
Oh, gosh. 72. 7? I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
The Band.
I don't know. But I like that.
I like the
that
song.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like. Well, one
But
thing.
it's funny because you mentioned Lake Charles. We
did mention it.
And I can forget the guy's name, but he always comes back with the
Sean.
With Sean. I'm sorry,
Sean's
Sean.
great.
He always comes back with a bumpy music that kind of follows a theme.
Let's give him a last name, Sean Murphy.
Sean Murphy. That's a good Irish name.
Sean's a good dude. He's works hard on this show. Appreciate him and Emily working behind the scenes. It is TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. If you want to be a part of the conversation, you can call or text us 979-693-1150, or you can call us on that Brian Foley Law hotline. It is the Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Memphis Tigers, OB, they got a different roster. That was a really big game last year. I'm trying to remember where I was. I was out of town watching that game. I think I was in Austin. Right around the same time of year, by the way. It was definitely December.
It was later, but yeah.
I remember Memphis getting out to a big lead, and then the Aggies went on a huge run. They just couldn't finish the game.
I think they cut it to like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Maybe not, but somewhere in that area. And you're thinking, oh, and they didn't shoot well, if I recall, from as another game from 3-point range. I have to go back and look it up, and I will. But they didn't shoot well that game, but they did make that huge push and almost pulled it out. And that would have been a big win if they'd been able to pull it out.
Yeah.
Might have been the difference between being a 7th seed and a 5th seed.
Potentially, although I thought they were better than a 7th seed with the resume
absolutely.
they
But
had.
if you had another win over Memphis, maybe even those dipsticks in the committee would have to acknowledge it.
We are still in a weird place when it comes to this team because these next 2 games aren't going to tell us everything because no 2-game stretch, but it's going to tell us a lot.
Oh, gosh. If you were to come out with victories in your next 2 games against Memphis and Houston.
Back to being a top 10 team probably, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Man, that's the kind of games, if you could win them, that barring a collapse, saying that you're going to be who everybody thinks you're going to be in the SEC race, that's the kind of wins that could elevate you to a 2 or a 3 seed.
Right.
I think, in Houston, 1 or 2, huge opportunity coming in front of you.
You have a little bit of a factoid tidbit to share with us.
Well, about the game against Memphis, they have Javon Quinterly. I think he's their top player. He was at Alabama last year.
Right.
Now, when A&M lost to Alabama in the finals of the SEC tournament, Javon Quinterly was 8 of 14 from the field, 4 of 8 from 3-point range, 2 of 2 at the line, 22 points, had 3 rebounds and 3 assists. Now, if I'm not mistaken, he had 12 points, a very pedestrian game.
The one at Reed?
At Reed Arena when A&M won. That would seem to suggest to me,
cover that dude,
cover that guy, because if you keep this guy under control, you probably win. So I wonder who'll be drawing that assignment. Jace Carter, most likely.
Possibly, yeah. I don't love Ovington. Who does? I don't love that they are not going. Potentially, I don't know the situation. None of us do. Potentially going into these next 2 games without some of their dudes, right?
Right. Well,
Boots, and then Marble.
Well, we
don't know. So, and I just assume they don't have him.
Yeah, I haven't had him all year,
right?
So.
And I doubt if he just started practicing, he's necessarily completely back in the rotation. So if that happens at some point, we'll discuss. But Boots is the main guy. That all being said, these are some valuable minutes for other players. They need Boots. They need him. Please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. He makes Wade Taylor a much better basketball player.
Does.
His ability to kind of calm the situation, just he can obviously take the ball from Wade and initiate some of the offense. They need that dude. But there are other players that are having to step up, and they will be better for it because of it.
Jace Carter. He's the prime example. And this can be don't get me wrong. You want Boots out there. I want Boots out there. I like to watch him play.
I love the way he attacks the rim.
But it can be a blessing in disguise. You know you're going to get him back eventually. So with him being out, that just gives more time, like you just said, to Jace Carter, and he gets more comfortable with what's going on. And then it's almost like a bonus when you get him back, Boots back. So, but I hope he's back Sunday. We all hope he's back Sunday, and having him on the court, obviously raises your odds to win the game, and it's a big game.
It is a huge game. And by the way, if he were to come back, it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to play substantial minutes. And again, this is all speculation. We don't know.
We don't know.
We know nothing. We live in a world today, and I totally understand it. The coaches are doing it for a reason, that coaches are going to keep as much information private as possible, and that is to protect their game plan, to make it more difficult for the other teams. And we're on a need-to-know basis. And if we don't need to know, they ain't going to tell us, OB.
Yeah. Buzz Williams, who's almost prophetic, said at the beginning of the year, I'm not going to discuss injuries. So if you ask about injuries, you're not going to get an answer. He made that very clear. And he was asked about injuries and the last press conference, or maybe it's the next last one, and he just didn't give an answer.
Did not give an answer.
So
just wait and see.
It's a wait and see kind of thing. But I have to believe that Boots, or I want to believe that Boots is close to returning to the lineup.
6 guys, double figures in the game against DePaul. Look, that doesn't necessarily guarantee success because with this team.
You know what I think about this team? I think if they at least match their opponent in 3-point goals, that they're going to win.
Yes. But the problem I have with that is I just don't think we're a very good 3-point shooting team. So you better hope you take on teams that are.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. If you just match them, because the way Henry Coleman is scoring inside, and Wade has that ability to penetrate and draw fouls, and Jace too. So I think they can, if they can match, if they don't just get pulverized at the 3-point line. I feel really good about their chances of. In fact, I would expect them to win if they are, if they match their opponent from there.
Look at those numbers right
there. I'm not saying that means you have to go out and make 14 3-pointers like they did the other night. I'm just saying don't get blown away at the 3-point line by your opponent.
I'm going to make this as an easy question. Who's been their most consistent player this year?
Oh, Henry Coleman.
No doubt. And that stat line that you see there, 13 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, I feel like that's a copy and paste of several other box scorers or in that ballpark.
Yeah. But you know who's their most explosive player remains? Wade Taylor.
Yep.
Because when Henry and Boots were out against FAU, probably the best team they played this year, Wade Taylor goes out and scores 35, and they almost win.
They almost win that game, yeah.
Without Henry and Boots playing almost the entire game. So they're not reliant on Henry. They're not necessarily reliant on anybody, but man, if they could just get it full strength, and they're really good.
They are very.
And they're
good.
Gonna. They can beat anybody at full strength, and sometimes even without being at full strength, like they almost did against FAU.
Randall and Salado, how can you guys not know anything about Marble? Well, it's very simple. It is a university situation. And they handle it. And
yes, that's not a sports thing.
It's not a sports thing. And we're not going to speculate or anything. They handle it, and we'll know when we know. So, Randall, you know that we are, as a company, especially Billy Liucci, as plugged in as they come. He is the most plugged in guy. It's not as they come. And we report facts on this program.
Yeah, when we speculate, we point out, now this is just pure speculation, don't know, but this is what we think.
But when it comes to matters like that, I'm not going to speculate.
Right. And again, that's out of the control of athletics or anything like that. We don't even know exactly why he's not playing. We just know it's a university issue.
All right, let's take a break right now. A moment for Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. Great inventory over there, guys. Pre-owned, the new vehicles, they're awesome. When you go to a Caldwell Country Chevrolet, the Caldwell Country Chevrolet, you put the THE in there, you're going to be blown away by the entire experience. Because when you go there, you're obviously searching for a car, or you can be like my wife, who likes to look at houses and cars online just to know what's out there, David. I just want to know. She doesn't talk like that. She gets very mad when I do that. So do not, I know a bunch of her coworkers listen to the show. Do not tell her I did that voice. But that's the fact. She likes to see what's out there. But when you go to Caldwell Country Chevrolet and you search online, you're going to be like, wow, that's that price for that vehicle? That little of miles? Really? For reals? And then you're going to go there, you're like, wow, the customer service is out of this. You will say the word wow. You will. Because it's that great when you go to Caldwell Country Chevrolet. It is not a far drive, too. You're talking about a great experience and also something close to the Brazos Valley. In the Brazos Valley, 15 minutes, the edge of Bryan to the edge of Caldwell, short conversation away. But you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the good people there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. This is your jam, OB.
Oh, it is. I've two-stepped more than once to this one.
When's the last time you went two-stepping?
Oh, gosh, it's been a while. Well, that's not true. Last time I was down in South Padre Island, Irma and I and some friends went out to a place. It wasn't a country bar, but they played some country songs. So we got out there and
you cut a rug?
Cut a rug?
Yeah.
Man, you don't want a rug around me.
Buddy.
I'll cut it in pieces.
Offer still on the table. Northgate OB in Nuño. Get Luke to film it. Let's go.
All right, let's do it.
Water keg stands. I'm in.
I don't even know what that is.
You don't know what a keg stand is?
Is that where they turn you upside down?
Yeah. That's so disgusting when you really think about how many mouths. I sounded like mouth. I can't imagine Billy's ever done.
I can't imagine anybody being able to pick up Billy upside down. He's a big dude.
There was a time, I don't know if I should tell it. Should I tell a story about what my drinking days back in the day?
Sure.
1998, I go to Panama City, Florida with my good friend Matt Hugo, Carlos Zubizarreta, a bunch of good old Aggies. And we were all doing shots when we arrived. This is so embarrassing. It's not even that big of a deal, but it's very embarrassing. And there was not enough shot glasses for me. So I washed out a, what do you call it? Where the cigarettes ash?
Oh, an ashtray?
Ashtray, thank you. I washed one out and I did an ashtray shot.
Oh, that is pretty disgusting.
Freaking disgusting, ladies and gentlemen. To this day, and I got so inebriated that day that I passed out.
Yeah.
Not good. Not a proud moment for this guy who just drinks water and coffee.
Yeah. Well, we all have stories.
We all have stories,
from
buddy.
Our crazy youth.
Where's the text I want to read? Mario Sanchez on YouTube says, I'd rather play with a team full of walk-ons than a team full of mercenaries.
Yeah, you say that until game day.
I'll take a couple of mercenaries. I don't want a full mercenaries, but mercenaries usually get the job done. I'll take some mercenaries.
Well, I'll say this. If your walk-ons can, if they're all like J.J. Watt was a walk-on, if those...
That's the best kind of walk-on.
If you win...
Was Baker a walk-on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the problem is that ultimately you still want to win the game. And as much as it sucks, you need those mercenaries to win the games now.
Let's go to the Angry Elephant News in the Social Center. We find
Speaking
Hannah
of
there.
mercenaries.
Yeah? Is that me, I guess?
No, not really.
Anyways, though. We have... Prevo Ag says, David, have you noticed the majority of players hitting the portal are from out of state? Players who have no issue leaving their home state will always be more apt to move around. Do you think that is a valid statement?
It might be. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just think we're in a different world of college football or college athletics where it is almost encouraged. It's like your peers are like, dude, just test it out. Let's see what's out there. Even if you're happy, you think you could be happier. You like the interactions on social media. I'm telling you, that plays a part. They want to be courted. They want to be coveted. They want to be told how much they're needed.
I will say this. It's really maybe not have anything to do with the actual text, but there was a time this year when A&M had more starters, especially on defense, from out of state than they did from Texas. And that, to me, is it's odd only because there's so many great players in Texas. Now, I didn't have a problem with it.
Right.
Do you want to not start Walter Nolan? Do you not want to start Fidel Diggs or Edgerrin Cooper or Tyreek Chappelle? There's just a lot of them. It's good that they're here, but it's just odd. I'm not saying it was wrong. I'm just saying it's odd that for a Texas-based school to have more out-of-state starters and in-state starters, just kind of strange.
By the way, we got somebody listening in Puerto Rico. I had to say with the accent.
San Juan?
I didn't say.
Okay.
He said his name is Boricua Aggie, which I'm just assuming he's from Puerto Rico, and that's where he is. Wait, what was the other one?
Paraguay.
Probably
Asuncion.
Ascension. Does it say Canada? I don't remember.
Who or where?
Paraguay.
Oh, yes. The one that you said.
Asuncion? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the capital. That's where most
Are you
people
just
live.
agreeing to agree and move on, or did you actually see Ascension?
No. It actually is. I just didn't want to pronounce
we're
it myself,
global.
so I'm glad that
We're global.
he did.
South America. South American Aggies.
Nick's mom is listening, by the way.
Not in South America.
Sugar Land, Texas, in the house.
Well, that's kind of like South America.
Yeah.
Miss Savage is awesome.
This is a great
Just the
text
best.
to finish off. Do the 760 one that came up a little bit ago, just at least the first part of it.
All right.
Finding it.
Extremely glad that Elko's pushing for Texas kids.
Look, I'll say it again. I just want to get the best players. I don't care where they're from. It's just there's a lot of great football players in Texas. We love our Texas football. We love our Texas football players. We like to see them play for Texas A&M.
I like the way you phrased that, my friend. Thank you very much, Obi.
You bet.
Have a great weekend. Keg stands later?
Yeah.
Ashtray shots?
Heck yeah. I'm here for it.
Northgate streaking?
Nah, I think I might draw the line there.
Yeah, I might not. When we come back on TexAgs Radio, Mark French probably has never streaked, but he's very good talking basketball. That and more next on TexAgs Radio. One of the things I really appreciate about Mark French, the best, and I say this every time he comes on the show, so Mark, I apologize for, sounding the same every time, but the views from your office, no matter what office you're in, always make me smile. Welcome to the show, buddy. How you been?
I've been good, Nuño. Good to see you. Excited to talk a little hoops, and I'm trying to find some consistency. Hopefully I can be in the same office here for the next couple ones we do.
I love it, man. Mark French on the Brian Foley Law Hotline. Let's talk about the DePaul game and just anything that really stood out to you from that game, considering those tired legs got some rest, and they'll get Memphis with a little bit of rest, and then they'll get Houston with some rest.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously the storyline was three-point shooting, right? And so what we go, 14 to 31 from three? That's like 45, 46%. So that's something we haven't seen all year long, which is super exciting. If that's something that we could turn the corner on, it kind of opens up the horizon for possibilities. And so, and not just guys like Wade making threes. We had Jace Carter get in on the action. Hef had a couple of them. Bryce Lindsey came in, had about 15 minutes, hit 2 threes. So very promising. DePaul's not very good. Look, they're 1-7 now. So I don't want to take too much from it. Where we think we're going as a team, you should beat a team by, 20, 25 points like that, maybe more.
Talking to Mark French here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. As you and I were going back and forth about some of the talking points we were going to get into today, you put Elite 8 team checkpoints. Is that basically what an Elite 8 team looks like at this point in the season?
Yeah, so I think this is something we should do each time we come on, because what we're trying to do as a program is get to our first Elite 8 in program history, right? And so if we're going to do that, there's these certain mile markers along the way. Any team can get hot and make a round of 32, potentially even a round of 16 if you're talented enough. But to get to an Elite 8, if you were to go back and study it, there's these like little checkpoints. And I think that started in Disney. So we beat Penn State. You lose a slugfest to a Final Four team in FAU who brought back like 11 of their 15 guys. And an Elite 8 team does not lose that Sunday against Iowa State. And I was so proud of our guys without Boots, without Henry, to come back and be able to beat a good Iowa State team. That was like a checkpoint. And I think you saw how excited Buzz was. I was listening to the interview he did with y'all after that. You can kind of tell, like he kind of knows. I think he even made the comment to you, Nuño, like at some point in my career, I want to go to a Final Four. And I know how Buzz operates. When he's talking, like he'll leave clues. And when he's excited like that and he's talking about that, he knows he has something. And so I think throughout this year, there's these checkpoints. The Iowa State game was one. You've been gone for a week. You're in Orlando, and you're able to go squeak out a win on a Sunday afternoon, coming off of a loss. That's a huge mile marker, especially without 2 starters. Now we're about to go into a second checkpoint, in my opinion. Scratch the Virginia game. That doesn't hurt you at all. That was a good experience. Again, down 2 starters. But Memphis and UH, right? So you have to go 1-1. If you're an Elite 8 team, you may go 2-0 here, right? So like a round of 32 team, round of 16, you probably split these. But if you want to go Elite 8 or further, this needs to be a sweep. And so that's kind of the checkpoints I'm talking about. Those teams that make it far, they leave clues throughout the year.
So let me ask you this, because it's going to be difficult if Boots is not out there, right? And look, there's a long time before that Houston game. So can they win these next 2 without Boots? Can they split these next 2 without Boots? Well, how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, I think Memphis is gettable without Boots. I do not think Houston is gettable without Boots. Man, it's just hard. You got to have guards. And Jace Carter's been really, really good. He's coming on strong. Bryce Lindsey's starting to get more and more minutes. But, I mean, you got a 5th-year guy who's just been through the absolute, all the dog fights, and you can trust him. He's played in NCAA tournament games. He's played in conference title games. If this team's going to go where we want him to go, Boots has to be part of that equation, in my opinion. Wade's super talented, but you got to have 2 or 3 of those go-getters, and Boots is one of those when he's on. And so, it's definitely very concerning. him and Marble too. You know, we'll let the process play out. We don't want to speculate on that. But those are two guys. Like, if you want to go make a deep run, you have to have both of them, in my opinion. And so in the short term, I think Memphis is gettable perhaps without Boots, because that's a home game. Should be a rowdy crowd. Everyone in the Bryan College Station area needs to be at that game. We've talked for years about wanting more non-conference big names, and here's your chance. So let's go Pack Reed. But in terms of the UH game, that's a high-level Elite Eight type game, and you got to have all your Jimmies and Joes for it.
Mark, I want to kind of stay on that topic about getting Boots back, because I just think Boots makes Wade so much better. Having that guy next to him that he can rely on taking it to the rim, taking the ball, control duties away from him at times. Just Boots is such a steady influence on what the offense does.
Yeah, and he's steady. He's a steady influence because the opposing team has to account for him, right? And you know, when it's just Wade, that scouting report, you saw it at Virginia. It gets real skinny real quick. You know, they just say, all right, Wade's the engine. We got to find ways to cut off the engine. But when you have Boots, it's like, my goodness, well, where do we start? You know, and I think Boots definitely has a calming effect on Wade. Not that Wade's not capable if Boots isn't in the lineup, but doesn't it look just so much smoother when they're both out there? They're playing off each other. They've logged enough minutes now to where they kind of know the intricacies of each other's game. And I think it just puts the rest of the team at ease. It's like all the dominoes, everything kind of falls into place when the Boots plus Wade dynamic is in place. And so very, very pivotal that, hopefully we can get Boots back. I know it's a medical issue.
Talking to Mark French on the Brian Foley Law Hotline. Mark, let's talk a little bit about Buzz. I think you mentioned you heard my interview with him the other day. One of the questions I asked him, I think it was the last question I asked him, was like, how do you go about like the adapting that you do? Because he is a master of not only getting his team to be better by the end of the year, which you hope for every team, and it's not always the case, but that's certainly the goal. But like, he kind of can play chess with us or with the opponents that they play against, because they find different ways to be the same team but beat you in different ways, and he kind of goes throughout that as the season plays out.
Yeah, it's the nuances, right? And I think what separates great coaches from good coaches is that a good coach can recruit to a system and say, I want this type of player, and they kind of just have guys come in and fill those roles, whereas a great coach can adapt to any sort of roster and any sort of change. And I think what makes Buzz a great coach is that he's so adaptable. No matter what the roster is, he comes to know each player's strengths and weaknesses at a very deep level, and then he's able to formulate with his staff. I mean, it's a really unbelievable staff if you go down the line, but they get in that room and they figure it out, and it's really cool. Once you've been on the inside, you just, the way they operate, man, it's unbelievable. And just being able to get the most out of each guy, and just it's a ever moving target, right, Nuño? And you have to be able to adapt, and you have to be light on your feet, and you can't be stubborn, and you got to live in reality. You can't be, idealistic. And I think they do an amazing job of saying, here's what we're getting from X player or Y player or Z player, and this is how we're going to formulate a game plan to get the best out of them each night. And so they do a phenomenal job.
Talking to Mark French here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's talk about Jace Carter. Nice game the other day. He's a guy that, he and Eli Lawrence were trying to figure out, can they be like a hybrid version of Dexter? When you watch him play, tell me some of the things that you are noticing.
Well, he just kind of looks the part, right?
Yeah.
So like it's July. I was there watching an open gym. And of course, Solo is always the first guy that kind of jumps out at you for just sheer athleticism. But I bumped one of the coaches on the shoulder. I'm like, who is this kid? And it was Jace Carter, and just a beautiful jump shot. And it's a professional looking scorer, right? And he was 4 of 11 from 3 the other night, 5 of 12 from the field. Look, 6-7 points a game, 4 rebounds right now. I'd love to see him creep up in that 10-point a game range, which is actually where Dexter was. So maybe Jace is a little bit lower a lower upside on the defensive end. But that shooting, man, I'm telling y'all, as we get into conference play and into March, shooting is going to be just paramount because if Wade and Boots are going to get downhill, Jace, Hefner, all these guys are going to have to stretch the floor. And I think Jace can be that knockdown shooter who you can put in the corner and they can't help off of. And so as he evolves defensively, look, he's 6'6", like 200 plus. He's going to keep getting better defensively, and Buzz will make sure of that. But the biggest thing for me when it comes to Jace is like, hey, man, you need to be making 500 or 600 threes a day, because if you do that, it changes our whole trajectory. So I'm really, really encouraged by him. I wanted to see who would kind of take that ball and run with it in terms of being the knockdown shooter. Not that we don't need multiple, but Jace, man, just a really good-looking player.
Talking to Mark French here on TexAgs Radio. You mentioned Solo. I love his game. There's just, when I watch him, I'm like, I made the comparison the other day. I think I was on the air. That he plays basketball like a football player sometimes. There's a certain style that football players, and I don't mean that necessarily physically, just the way he uses his body, the way he attacks the rim. He's showing some shooting range as well. Just his growth has been fun to watch.
Oh, it's so fun. I know we've talked about it before. I just love Solo. He's got just a great energy about him. Yep. Even though they're not like, he only had 2 points, but it's like, dang, it was still fun to watch him, and he's just kind of got the it factor that you can't quantify. And look, New Orleans kid, this year 2 in the program. He's only going to get better. And he's had a few big games. I mean, he had 18, I think, in one of the games in Disney. And he's going to be pivotal. Him and Andy together crashing the offensive glass. That's really an SEC play if the listeners wanted to really know what goes on. Sometimes it's as simple as, hey, we're going to go beat them up on the boards and we're going to bully them. And that's a lot of what SEC basketball has turned into the last 5 years. Not that it's not good ball, but like once all that other stuff's covered, it's like, all right, if you want to know what happened in the game, just go check the offensive rebounds. And Solo and Andy give you a chance to win that every night. And we saw that last year, and we're going to continue to see that this year.
Mark, what are a couple areas that A&M, and maybe not obvious areas, right? We know they're a very good rebounding team. What are a couple areas that A&M is really good at, and a couple areas that you are maybe concerned where they need to improve?
Yeah, to me, it's just really about getting healthy. Like, we don't have a ton of gaps. I'd probably say one more shooter. Like, if Hefner could develop into like a 40% guy where we know we're getting 3 or 4 threes a game, that would be huge. I think Manny is kind of this wild card that I'd love to see kind of solidify himself instead of being slightly inconsistent. Be like, okay, I know I'm getting 10 from Manny tonight. That would be a really cool place to operate from. I think what I like is that there's a lot of options and depth. But again, your blessing can be your curse because in March, you're going to play 8 guys. So the next month, the next 30 to 60 days is really about, all right, who are the 8 to 9 I can trust? And if we can get healthy and whittle it down to those 8 or 9, and then in addition to Boots and Wade have, call it Jace and Hefner, develop into a 3-point shooter who we know can get 3 or 4 a night from deep, that would be the upside to this team, is just the driving lanes that it would open up, and also the space for Coleman and Marble, hopefully, to be able to operate down low. So continued 3-point shooting. It sounds cliche, but it's so simple, man. You just got to put the ball in the hole sometimes.
People forget Hef was not really a 3-point shooter when he got here, right? Like, I mean, and he is kind of like, you kind of think he's going to hit those shots now when he shoots. Like, yeah, I have faith.
There's a confidence. He has a little bit of a swagger. I think starting's been really good for him. Coming out of Houston, he played with the Houston Defenders, a big time AAU program, and we knew it would translate, but it was more of an athlete, kind of get out and transition, finish, type guy. And a lot of people are like, oh, he's the white kid, he's 6'6", he's a shooter, right? And that is something he's had to work on. But the confidence, you just see it. I mean, you can watch, and you're like, oh yeah, like he thinks that's going in. We think watching it's going in. There's something to that. Again, you can't quantify it, but you can see the confidence kind of building.
Talking to Mark French here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. When I look at this team, Mark, I think to myself, there's going to be a name that kind of develops that we're not talking about. Like, for instance, early on last year, Andy Garcia, we were kind of wondering when he was going to find his place. He found his place, without a doubt, and it started close to, I think, SEC play. Who's that guy this year that may be like, all right, maybe it's Eli Lawrence. Maybe it's the guy who's getting minutes but will take his game to another level. Who's that guy that you think, watch out, here with some time, he's going to be a name we're talking about for a while?
Yeah, I mean, Levesque has been solid, but he's a senior, kind of a known commodity. Eli really should be that guy, because if we can think about this, Nuño, if we get Jace locked in, we know we're getting 8 to 10 from him and a couple threes. The highest ceiling of this team, the version of that is Eli's also giving you 6 to 10, right? And those two together, you're kind of on any given night, you're like, all right, Eli plus call it Manny plus Garcia. We can kind of put those together and say we're going to get 20 to 30 points from these 3 or 4 guys. We're not sure which ones are going to give us what, but if Eli could develop into a guy where we know he's going to give us some scoring pop, that's a guy that maybe is flying a little bit under the radar after a little bit of a slow start, but could definitely do that. I think the other guy who I'm really bullish on is Bryce Lindsey. Look, Baltimore, Maryland kid, played at IMG in Florida. He's kind of what you want in the modern, a modern combo type guard. He's 6'3", he's got length. He's going to get better. And he had an injury in the summer that slowed his development down a little bit. And I think as we get into December, school's out and all these guys are doing is skill development, practice, and rehab. I think Lindsey, you could see, I'm not saying it'll be every game, but I think he'll have some moments to where heading into next year, he's a guy that is going to be in the core, 6 or 7.
Mark, I know you wanted to spend some time on football. Let's talk about it. The Mike Elko era's here. You're a fan just like we all are. Your thoughts on A&M football today as things stand?
No, I'm fired up. I think Elko, there's a stability factor with him, but also just like a raw competence. Like, it's like I feel in a good place with it. I'm interested to see how the recruiting goes, right? I'm a fan just like all y'all. Like, the one thing we can't do as a program, I think A&M kind of made this leap that they weren't in that realm before Jimbo, was top 5 to 6 class every year. And we can joke about the recruiting rankings, but at the end of the day, it comes down to all these teams that are playing have talent. If you're going to go win the SEC and you're going to go try to win a national championship, it comes down to talent. And you got to coach that talent up, sure, but you can't win without it in this league. And so I'm interested to see. I know they got a big weekend coming up, but very excited about Elko. I think the defense will be really good. And then obviously Klein, there's some upside there. I know Wigman likes him. So I think the biggest thing for me is, like, I don't want to see a drop off from a top 5 to 7 recruiting type school to, that 8 to 15 range someone typically had us in, just because you're gonna end up with 8 and 4. I mean, just go look at the schedule who you have to play. And so if Texas, LSU, Bama, all these schools are cranking out, top 5, 6 classes, we have to be there, right on the heels or ahead of them. And so I'm very excited. I'm encouraged. I think it says a lot about the school to say we'll pay $76 million and we're going to move in a new direction. I think I don't take that as a bad thing at all. I think A&M fans need to flip that on its head and say, no, that's how bad we want to win. And honestly, it's weird. People are worried about what we do with our money. Like my LSU friends, I'm in a group chat. Like, why are y'all so worried? Like, it's 2.5% of our annual, operating budget, the $8 million we got to pay Jimbo or whatever. Plus, we're about to get a big bump in TV revenue with the new ESPN deal. So, like, y'all tend to your own business over there in Bayou country. But anyways, I'm excited. So those are my thoughts. Last thing, I'll leave you with this, Nuño. Maroon end zones with white letters, potentially a helmet stripe, and then no bevel at midfield. just a couple things Elko could do.
I like it. I like it. You know, once we get our meeting with him, maybe I'll mention it. Hey, let me leave you with one last thing, all right? Marcia in College Station sends a text to the show, all right? She says, Mark French is such a nice young man and a gentleman. Proud of the young man he has become. I knew him when I worked at Prestonwood Christian Academy where he graduated. So getting some love from Marcia there.
Marcia, thank you so much. It's I really appreciate that. And Prestonwood was a great place. I was only there 9 months, but it was some really foundational for me. So very thankful for Marcia and everyone over there.
Mark, I appreciate you, sir. Thanks so much for making time, buddy.
Appreciate you, Nuño. Talk soon.
Later,
Bye.
buddy. Mark French there on the Brian Foley Law Hotline. Right now, we're taking a break. When we come back, Jamie Morrison will be here in studio talking end of season for volleyball. It ended last weekend. We'll chit-chat with him about that. Right now, we're talking about Heritage Films. How about the Mark French Heritage film that could be done? I'm sure his dad's got an awesome story too, but like his time at Prestonwood, his time growing up as a young man, and then, you know, coming to A&M and like the business tycoon that he's become, that would be a really cool heritage film, because they do documentary films about people's lives and their families and their story. They can do it about the patriarch in the family. They can do it about so many different things. They can do it about an event. You do things every year. Chance McClain and his crew can go out there and shoot it, do the interviews, shoot the video, and there you have it. You can kind of like, hey, we do the Turkey Bowl every year for Thanksgiving. We play football, a bunch of us 50-year-olds. We've been doing it for 15 years. Why don't you have that captured in like a real documentary form, and maybe even leading up to the event, like interviews, like, hey, yeah, you know, I've been training, been stretching the quads, trying to feel good, pulled a hamstring last year, can't do that. Chance can tell that story among your family business, your family ranch. That's what he does with Heritage Films. He also does the Year Flicks, which is more for younger people. It can be for anybody, but it's more for the younger people, right? It's a benchmark video where you can follow it up with part 2 and part 3 and part 4, such as freshman year at Texas A&M. Your 18-year-old son is like, I love it here. This is what I'm doing. This is my major. Sophomore year, I had to change my major because I realized I'm really not a business guy. I'm more of a journalism guy. Gets to journalism. I love my major. I'm doing this and that. I'm doing this podcast. I'm doing this senior year. I'm graduating, and TexAgs is hiring me. That could be part of the Year Flicks. Chance will tell that story. YourHeritageFilm.com is the website. YourHeritageFilm.com. 713-893-8341. 713-893-8341 is Heritage Films. We're going to have to reschedule Jamie Morrison. We'll get that done hopefully next week here on TexAgs Radio. We appreciate everybody being a part of this morning's conversation. You can call, you can text. Some takeaways there from the interview with Mark French. Here's the thing. Whoever steps up, like there's going to be a guy, there's going to be an Andy Garcia that steps up. And Jace Carter seems like, Dexter Dennis, I think we all kind of expected him to be a night. I remember, and some of the same words that Mark used with Jace, I remember using with Dexter last year, right? And my thing was, like, you looked at Dexter Dennis and you're like, this guy just looks like an NBA player. His body, his length, the way he attacks. You say the same thing about Jace, right? If Jace comes around as a potential, more often than not, third option, and on some nights the second option, right? Or, like, again, when you got a guy like Henry who's been as consistent, maybe the second option isn't the right word, but another guard option for Wade to distribute to and to open up the offensive side. If he steps up to that calling on a consistent basis, this team's going to be right where we think they can be. Yeah, you got to get health. You got to win some tough games. The SEC is kind of in a weird place. There's been some losses in there, but I do strongly believe that I am not going to read too much into these next two games if they don't go as planned. I'm also going to believe totally into it if they go the right way, but you've got to caution it because there's a long season ahead. But we know the way Buzz builds his teams and he builds his formula is chipping away. And with that, I think we'll see a different team once SEC play starts, right? There'll be a couple more games under their belt, a little bit more rest. This team will be battle-tested and battle-rested, right? It's going to be a fun ride. But to me, they've got to get some consistency from the guys that haven't been consistent. And Wade Taylor's going to find his consistency. I'm not worried about Wade. Henry's been phenomenal. Hopefully they get Boots back out there. If Jace can be a consistent 10-plus scorer, Hayden Hefner continuing the way he has started this season, I think this team, because again, not only does defense travel, defense is a mindset, it's an intensity. Yeah, it travels, but it's a way about going about your business. And we know that with the way that they attack teams, that's going to be there every night. And when they have fresh legs, they can even amp it up even more. So that's going to be a big part of what happens for Aggie basketball. A lot of people asking about if we have an update on the defensive coordinator. Not as of right now. We will have Billy with us at 10 o'clock. So we'll chit-chat a little bit with Billy and see how things are going with him and on this search. I do know that Manny Diaz going to Duke will have some ripple effects. Potentially some of the coaches maybe left on the Duke roster, on the coaching staff, might end up coming this way because of it. So we'll see. And I'm still trying to figure out, and I'll talk to Billy about it, Lane Kiffin's pick with the A&M playing again. Like, dude, is it rent-free? Is that what the kids say, Hannah? Rent-free?
Oh, yeah. Living rent-free in your head. I want to bring up, just while we're here, that on Wednesday, girls basketball, women's basketball, they had 5 players scoring in double figures for the second time in 3 games. So they're also just like completely rolling right now. Are they
7-1?
They are 8-1 now.
8-1, thank you.
Yeah, of course. But they had a really, I guess, building season last year. I think they ended like 9-20 or something like that, and they're already 8-1. So it's just such a huge change for Jenny Taylor and for the rest of women's basketball.
I know we all believe in Coach Elko. Not all, but I assume that the energy seems very high with Coach Elko. Let's just go ahead and call it the way it is. Some of these hires A&M has made, like the feels that you get with Schloss, the feels that you get with Buzz, the feels that you get with Joni Taylor, the feels that you get with Trisha Ford, like Jamie Morrison, like Brian Corton, Garrett Chadwell. I'm sure I'm forgetting folks, right? But like the feels that you get with these hires, Joni Taylor, obviously, it just makes you feel really good about the direction of the athletic program. Makes you feel really, really good. When we come back here on TexAgs Radio, let's talk to Chris Taylor. CT has not been on the air since the last game, the LSU game, so we'll get him on the show, chit-chat about all things Texas A&M, Coach Elko, defensive coordinator, Colin Klein in the offense, the transfer portal, a lot of that Plus, we'll open up the phone lines at 979-693-1150. A lot to get into here in the rest of the 9 o'clock hour. As a reminder, Billy will join us in the 10 o'clock hour. We'll talk about the DC. We'll talk about the portal, all the good stuff. That and more next on TexAgs Radio. We are back, TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. About to go to the Brian Foley Law Hotline. Good people can have a bad day. Call Brian Foley Law, 936-596-0407, serving Houston, the Woodlands, Conroe, and the Brazos Valley. We go to that Brian Foley Law Hotline. We're joined by CT, Chris Taylor on the program. Chris, what's up, buddy?
Man, how are you guys doing this morning?
We're okay, man. I feel like this whole portal thing, man, it's just
draining.
It is draining, but I also want to get energized from it too, right? Because you leave, come on in. So maybe I'm trying to make myself feel better. Tell me how you feel about this, CT. But the guys that are leaving, I want them to stay. I really do. These guys are Ags, right? Until they leave. Yeah. But they were 12-12 with them the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying they were the reason, but they sure didn't overcome the reason.
Right. I've tweeted this week that, the portal does run both ways. Obviously you're able to go get solid guys, but, and I think sometimes, and myself included, we put too much emphasis on the stars and who's rating these guys. And Hey, you have guys that play and they're contributors and they make a huge impact. But to your point, I mean, 12-12, we've had a lot of these guys have played a lot of football over the last 2 years, and where we saw vast improvement in our defense, the record still speaks for itself. We're still going to play Oklahoma State in the Texas Bowl. We're 7-5 right now, and we're still looking for answers. So, I think when it comes to players and filling your roster, it's not so much about the stars, or those players are good, but you have to find football players. Case in point, guy on the roster right now, Torian York, wasn't a highly touted recruit. And, you look at him, just what he's done this past season as a freshman. Mike Evans, another case of that. Johnny. I mean, so these guys, coming out, you're not going to win games just based on when you walk on the field and your stars are shining. I mean, you've got to go put it on the field. And, I'm excited to see what Elko and company they're able to pull out of the portal. I'm excited to see what this recruiting class is going to look like on signing day. And so there's a lot to be positive and optimistic about. But the portal, yeah, I'm tired of hearing about it already.
I don't want necessarily clean house by any stretch. There's a lot of really good players out there.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes by opening the door to a lot of new ideas and just new personalities can, along with the coaching change, can change the way certain guys have gone about their business because they're seeing it from a different point of view.
Yeah. And I think that's where that those guys who do stay, that veteran leadership. I mean, we're 2 years removed from that 22 class. We're about to be, in 24, have that recruiting class. And so a lot of these guys need to step up and be leaders. And, my mindset is, if you choose to be here, great. We love it. Let's put our heads down. Let's go to work. But if you choose to move on, hey, you know what? Good luck. I don't ever question or feel anything towards a guy who feels like they have a better situation in moving on. But that veteran leadership is going to have to step up. Your guys like your Bryce Fosters, even, Connor is going to have to step up. Those guys are going to have to be more vocal and get this team in the right direction, because the culture of your football team, I think, is so important. And it can't just come from a coaching level, a coaching standpoint. You have to have players in that locker room that are holding each other accountable to be where you're supposed to be and doing the things that are going to improve your team as you get ready to move into spring and then ultimately for the start of the fall season.
CT J2 on the YouTube page says Maroon Goons need to resurface soon. And I want to follow that up with a thought that hit my head. I think what Coach Elko can symbolize is a return to Wrecking Crew types of defense, a return to a Maroon Goons, an identity. Like the Jimbo era, I don't know if there was an identity. I think that the Maroon Goons were part of that identity, obviously, but it was a season, right? I want to talk about an identity that lasts for a long time.
Yeah, and I think Elko, coming from a defensive standpoint, brings a toughness to that, especially to the defense. But, you heard so much, and I think it was the recruiting class of, the 22 class where, we had all these guys and we were getting linemen, and you heard the Maroon Goons. You got to have that Steve McKinney, Seth McKinney mentality. Those guys were just nasty. And it was at the point of attack, you knew that somebody, you were collisioned and that people were pushing on you and hitting. And, not to take anything away from our guys, but I think we play soft at times. We play reactive. We're waiting to see what the other side is going to do, and then we react to it instead of taking the fight to them. So hopefully, with the addition of our new line coach, you can establish that mentality and have that nastiness about that group. Because if you can set the tempo up front with those 5 guys and sometimes those 6 guys, I think the biggest thing is you open your offense up to do whatever you want to do. You can run the football in long yardage situations. You can pass the football in short yardage situations. So you give yourselves a bunch of opportunities to do some dynamic things on offense. But it starts up front with those 5 being physical and setting the tone for that offense.
CT, you've been in locker rooms, you've been a part of teams, you've been a coach. So do you think most athletes, crave discipline.
I think so. I mean, and even in my life today, it's crazy. Some of the lessons and some of the things that I did when I played, I still do them today. You know, I despise being late to anything. You know, having the discipline to get yourself up, get it to where you're supposed to be, do the things that you're supposed to do. But that word discipline still rings true in my life. You know, what are you disciplined in doing? You know, are you doing those things consistently that are going to continue to make you be successful and create success along the way? So I think that discipline is a huge thing, and that if Elko can come in and he can establish that and hold guys' feet to the fire, and they embrace that, I think you can see this team take a step forward next year. But discipline is going to be huge. You know, there's a lot of chaos surrounding the program right now, a lot of uncertainty. Who's going to be here? Who's going to be doing that? Who's going to be, you know, in maroon and white in the fall? And I think if he can come in, he can stabilize things and get that buy-in and really get those guys bought into what we're looking to do. That discipline will be there, and I think that you can see a much improved team, you know, when we put them on the field in the fall.
How hard is that to do when, and I'm not saying that it was a country club across the street, I don't know, but when kids are used to maybe allowed to show up late to meetings and there's discipline here and there, but like not immediate discipline. How hard is that for a player to kind of like, oh, this is different rules here? Like, is it especially in the world of transfer portal?
Yeah. I think it runs both ways, because it's not going to feel good at first. You know, you're holding guys accountable and making them be where they're supposed to be. And whether that's in the classroom or the weight room or they're watching tape, it's going to be uncomfortable. But when you make an example out of a couple of those guys that just don't quite get it. And, you know, I remember the 6 o'clock, you know, punishments and, you know, pushing weights and doing rolls and all of those different things. I remember all of those things. And either you're going to learn very quickly, or, you know, in today's college football, you're going to find somebody that will buy in to the culture that you're trying to create. So I think Elko is going to work really hard to establish that. And I think we're going to lose some guys because of that. I mean, you know, Jimbo, he lost guys because of it. You know, just the discipline wasn't there and doing boneheaded things. But I think that the direction that this program wants to go and everything that Ross has talked about, bringing back the College Station ball team, I think it starts with the discipline and accountability and those guys buying in. But it's going to be uncomfortable for a little bit, you know, but if you want to be a championship football team, then these are the things that you have to do to become that. And sometimes it's not the greatest thing. It's not the most fun thing to do. But if we can buy in, I think you can see a great product.
Talking to CT, Chris Taylor here on TexAgs Radio on the Brian Foley Law Hotline. CT, how about this? Like, when you think about guys wanting to stay, how important is it for them, if not to verbalize it on social media, although I would like to see some of that, just to make sure they're verbalizing it to the roster? I ain't going nowhere. Like, this is my team. This is my university. Like, how important do you think that is, especially with younger players?
You know, I think it's very important, you know, because if you see the guys, and, you know, we all know the noise that's surrounding Evan Stewart and Walter Nolan and, you know, LT Overton. And so we understand the things that are going on. But I think it's very important to voice that, you know, and it's, you know, even today with you know, Texas in the college football playoffs, and you have TCU made the championship game last year. I'm still proud to be an Aggie. And I wear that, you know, as a badge of honor, just because I understand what this university allowed me to do. You know, I was able to get my degree from there. I was able to learn a ton. I have friendships with guys from playing that, you know, we're looking 25 years later that I still talk to a lot of those guys. And that's the camaraderie and the brotherhood that is created, you know, by going and playing week in and week out. And that you know, that whole deal of blood, sweat, and tears, it really does. You know, really does factor in here. So I would like to see more of those guys who, you know, and I think Donovan Green does an amazing job doing that. Like, listen, we have unfinished business. I'm here. And he's telling the world, I'm an Aggie. I would like to see that more, because I believe that we were 7-5 this past season, could be 8-5, with the bowl game. But you look at some of those losses that we have, if the ball bounces a certain way here, this could be we're talking a totally different season. So the buy-in is going to be important. And that goes back to creating that culture. Guys that want to be here, guys that want to be a part of this, this football program. You have everything under the sun. You have facilities. I mean, you have a fan base that is they're thirsty for, this program to be successful. They're thirsty for a championship, not only a conference championship, but chasing that national championship. And we have a roster that is capable of doing it. There's just a few pieces and things that need to be tweaked, make some adjustments here along the way. And this could be a special place. So, hopefully those guys, instead of it being, I'm going to put myself in the portal, I'm going to announce it for the world to see, they wear that Texas A&M across the front of their chest, and they do the same thing. Listen, I'm an Aggie. I committed here for a reason. It wasn't just about ball. It was about the lifelong relationships and things that are developed. I'm a Texas A&M Aggie, and I'm here for the long haul. And you should lock in and buy into this culture too.
Talking to Chris Taylor here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. How important then is this, in that kind of vein, the OC hire of Colin Klein and whoever ends up being the DC? I'm super excited about what I've read up and seen from Colin Klein.
Yeah, I think, you look at Kansas State, and I remember those battles back in the day. I mean, Bill Snyder, a Bill Snyder guy. Bill Snyder always had tough football teams. They were always going to play hard. And, to see Colin Klein, second in Heisman voting to Johnny, I think he's done a great job with less at Kansas State. Now, people will argue, well, the Big 12 is defensively they're challenged. Ball is ball. I mean, you've got to go play. And, to see that he's been able to have success and to be able to run the football and take quarterbacks and create and make them better and make a system that fits them. I'm excited to see what he does. I mean, he has weapons at his disposal. As long as guys on that offense stay put, you're going to have the Noah Thomases, the Evan Stewarts. Obviously we lose Anias, but Ja'Day Walker stepped up, and I thought he had a good second half of the season. And then to get Connor back and that running back room. So you're going to have weapons, but I think it all comes down to, Colin being able to create a mindset along the offensive line, tough, nasty guys that just whip your behind for 60 minutes. And so it's going to be interesting, man. We have an OC. That's a positive thing. We haven't had that in 6 years. So we have an offensive coordinator now.
How difficult is it to know that A&M's goal this year was to play in Houston? They're playing in Houston, not the way they wanted to be playing in Houston. And, oh, by the way, the team entering the SEC could be ending up in Houston. They're a game away from that.
Yeah. I don't think anybody's happy with where the season has gone or where it's at. And looking west over to those guys in Austin, I mean, definitely not where we want it to be and not where we wanted those guys to be. But we only can control what we can control. This was our doing. Nobody else played those games for us. And I think the thing is here, you have a unique opportunity. Everybody doesn't have the chance to go and play in a bowl game. And, those things are special, regardless of where it is. And so, I think A&M will be in full effect down in Houston. I think when's the game? The 28th.
Yep.
I think you'll have a great representation down in Houston. But I think even more so, it gives those guys more opportunities to continue to practice, to get better, to gain some of that valuable experience that if you were not in a bowl game, you'd be sitting home and you wouldn't get it. You'd be in your off season. So the bowl game, I think it keeps guys engaged. It keeps people close. And it gives us an opportunity to see our team play one more time this year. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do on the 28th. I know that Oklahoma State has a long record of being in bowl games. They're going to be a challenge. Didn't show that in the Big 12 championship game, but it's still that team has traditionally been pesky. They've been tough. They're going to play you for 60 minutes, but I think if we come out and we play our football game, the game that we're supposed to play and know how we're supposed to, that we should have a win, and then you end the season at 8-5. You never want to end it on a loss. go out and get a win, go into the offseason, start building, get this new staff in here, and really start pushing towards 24.
CT, I'm ready to turn the page, but after a win, man. Appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys have a good one.
You too. Chris Taylor there on the Brian Foley Law Hotline. We'll hit a break. Short segment before Billy comes. By the way, if you want to get some text messages in at the end of the 10 o'clock hour, we will ask Billy some questions that come in on the text line 979-693-1150. Right now, Milliken Reserve Farm to Table community in College Station. They got homes, they got trails, they got wide open spaces with a mission to build a healthy community around nature dedicated to the conservation of a healthy community. Respect for that native landscape and wildlife. They've got 2,600 acres of open space, farms, 30 miles of trails and homes out there. They connect families to nature and to each other. They've got an extensive network of trails throughout a wooded landscape that includes walking and equestrian paths, creeks and ponds and gathering areas, a place for families to cherish for generation after generation. Milliken Reserve, committed to maintaining and restoring that natural habitat. When you go there, check out all the beautiful animals that you can find. You can find the songbirds, the turtles, the rabbits, and the white-tailed deer. And homeowners at Milliken Reserve share a legacy of conservation, which means generation after generation. You're coming back to that pristine countryside place. It is a wonderful place to go hiking, biking, canoeing, kayaking. You can go to the equestrian trails while you're there, the farmer markets, and the farm tours. Check out the website, millikenreserve.com. Again, that website, millikenreserve.com. Oh, I'm on. Didn't even know I was on.
Oh.
Text. Oops. What happened?
Well,
Around
'cause
Aggie Land, presented by Norman G. State Bank. Norman G. State Bank, rock solid banking. Website, normanGStateBank.com. Kay, I left you no time, so we may do a two-part series here. Maybe make it into a documentary. What do we got on Around Aggie Land?
Two-part. Well, I was going to ask you
Yeah.
how many tackles you think you would have if you were a freshman or 18 years old playing on an SEC team.
If freshman, I think I would have 0.
0? Okay. Well, Torian York was named alongside Ruben Owens and Chase Besantis, but Torian York specifically, I just want 66 total tackles for a freshman at 18 years old. Also, 8.5 tackles for loss is crazy numbers. Like I said, they were named to the SEC all-freshman team, and then along with Anaya Smith, Edrin Cooper, Layden Robinson, and Shamar Turner were also awarded some all-SEC honors. So football, of course, doing good stuff, and we can talk some basketball on the other side.
Yeah, let's do it the other side. I'm surprised you didn't ask me about the ashtray shot.
Yeah, well, on the other side. We'll get to
I don't
it.
know. I don't know if we need to get into that anymore. I just saw you comment on it on the YouTube page. All right, more with Kay. Billy should be with us here in a moment. All that and more is TexAgs Radio, presented by, who are we presented by?
David Garnish Jewelers.
Oh, you're hosting soon, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
TexAgs Radio. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. It is the 10 o'clock hour, obviously. You probably know. And if you're listening on podcasts, it's whatever time it is. Billy should be with us here in a moment. But before that, let's finish around Aggieland. Poor Kay Naegeli had like 22 seconds to finish around Aggieland. Brought to you by Norman G. State Bank. So, Kay Naegeli, I don't know why I first and last named you. Let's do it.
First and last name, let's do it. Basketball, like I said, we would pick up on that. So let's start with men's. Men's had a season high 14 3-pointers. 11 were during the first half when they cruised to a victory over DePaul. That was at Reed Arena. That was a great game. I know a lot of people enjoyed seeing the Aggies back in Reed, and they will continue their stand in Reed. They currently sit at 7-2, entering Sunday's clash with Penny Hardaway's Memphis Tigers. That is a 3 p.m. tip, so if you're in College Station, make sure to head over. Along those same lines, women's basketball will be playing on Saturday. They will host Robert Morris. That is a noon tip, so make sure to go over there. And they just got a win in front of a whole crowd of elementary school students. I know Luke Evangelist was over there covering that game, and he had a lot of screeching noises around him that I'm sure he appreciated, but I know the environment was really cool, so that was awesome to see for the women's team as they beat Lamar. Moving on to some baseball news, Texas A&M Baseball has released their non-conference slate for 2024. That was announced yesterday. The Aggies will open with an 8-game homestand highlighted with McNeese. That's Ryan Broniger's very own alma mater, and then Wagner. And then A&M's first road trip will take place at Globe Life Park against Arizona State and USC. Texas A&M will also host Rhode Island for their final non-conference series of the year.
Is that it? Are we done?
That's all I got.
That's all we get. So we got it in.
I saw the man himself walk by the little opening, so I was like,
did he walk by?
He did. I saw him. I saw his little flannel.
He's probably telling somebody.
Unless someone's in a flannel and hat, probably not. That's Billy.
Before I let you go, have you ever done an ashtray shot?
No, and I could not believe you admitted this on radio. Like, this is
20-year-old
like
Nuño,
you are known
21.
You are known for your healthy, like, good lifestyle, all of those things, and for you to just say that is kind of like walking back everything you've ever all your workouts.
It shows that I'm human. Look, it shows that I'm human. I did used to partake in alcoholic beverages back in the day. I used to
Question.
Yeah.
Was that seriously the best thing around you that you could have used?
Yeah.
You didn't have a cup.
There's nothing left. There's nothing left. I was like, all right, let's clean it. Boom. I cleaned it.
Don't tell Billy this story.
He probably heard it in the first hour. And here he is, ladies and gentlemen. Without further ado, the co-owner, executive editor of TexAgs Radio, my friend, Billy Liucci. Hello, Billy.
Hi, Dave.
Examining my shirt? What's going on?
No.
Oh, okay. I felt
fine.
the eyes.
No, that was just tired eyes of a long week.
It has been a long week.
A long
mentally
coaching
exhausting
change.
Yep.
As always. What's up?
Hey, bud.
I bet I'm getting more sleep than Mike Elko these days, though.
Well, I don't think he has time to sleep. He's so busy. I mean,
I'll tell you what. I sit there, and it doesn't matter if I go to bed at 11, 1, 2. It doesn't matter. Okay? I'm getting up at the crack of dawn thinking that I'm hearing my phone. I don't have it on vibrate, but just that little, whatever the hell it does. I don't even know how to fix it. So it makes a little sound when I get a text or a phone call. And from the minute those birds start chirping, I'm pretty much awake, expecting a text or a call, something, whether it's somebody going in the portal, somebody new that they're looking at, coaching hire information, whatever. And literally kind of in those hours before that, you're almost dreaming that the phone's doing that to wake you up. And I can't imagine him, in terms of what he's wading through right now between portal, NIL, trying to keep your roster together, find guys in the portal, hire a coaching staff, be on the road recruiting. I mean, it seems insane to me. They've got to, and I hope they don't do it now, because I want to see, they probably will. This is how it's worked, it seems, for A&M lately. I'd rather them go out and keep the portal dates the way they are. So next year and the year after that, A&M can prey on coaching changes.
Right.
And go and be part of that group that goes and picks apart rosters. It's absolute, complete, and total that they have it at this time. Push that thing back. The portal window doesn't need to be 3 weeks long. Push that back and let teams at least get a coach hired to where he has enough time to put together a coaching staff and adequately meet with the players on his current roster, and at least on some small fraction of a way get to know them and have the conversations that he needs to have, and not just one initial and in a lot of cases final sit down with kids, because they're like just sitting there tapping their foot ready to go and walk out of that room and go hop in the portal. So, and yesterday was a better day in terms of portal activity for A&M. I'm not going to say that they've completely plugged the dam, and we're not going to see any other names that people don't want to see leave. But I think it sounds like they've made some real progress with a lot of the remaining roster in terms of, I think it won't be long before you start seeing some of the bigger name guys on the team start saying, "Hey, I'm staying." There's a few battles they're still fighting, and they're still fighting for some of the guys that left. I don't think you're going to see anybody really try to bring Chappelle back. I don't think you're going to see much in the way of trying to bring Diggs back. I know they'd love to have Fadil, but you're talking about, he's pretty tied in, I believe, with Elijah. And that doesn't mean he's going to Syracuse. I don't know whether he would or not. We saw what Elijah said in that presser. There was a little bit of room for interpretation there, but that relationship is as close as any player-coach relationship on the roster. So I get it that was his guy. So it doesn't mean he's going to go there. But I think him coming back without Elijah being here would be less likely than probably anyone else on the roster. So from those two, I think you'll see them continue to, not positive on Besantis. Obviously, they want him. I don't know, how far gone that one is. I know it wasn't completely gone when he went into the portal. And then Walter Nolan, they're going to, I think, as of even this morning, they're going to hang in and fight for him and see if they can get him back. And conversations have been ongoing and still are. I'm sure it's nobody likes seeing him go to Oregon this weekend.
Right.
But no one also said he wasn't going to take visits. I just think I've seen this act play out before, so I'm skeptical. But I'll just say this: I'm more skeptical than other people closer to it. I feel like there's at least some degree of we might still have a chance to get him back. So they'll keep fighting for that one because he's that good of a player at a position where you can really affect games.
How important is it going to be for programs moving forward to make sure that these athletes have relationships, like deep relationships with more than one guy? Where one guy, it's
hard to do. What do you do?
I don't know, but maybe create a position where you're the liaison, the player liaison guy. I don't know.
Most places have that. It's just when you were 20 and 21 and 19, like how often you want to go talk to your liaison or your mentor or you didn't
really want to.
I mean, you do. Like certain guys in this industry are better than others, but when it's football, how many are going to stay and say, hey, I'm staying for that guy that has nothing to do with coaching football, but I'm going to stay for him? There's a couple people in that building that are universally loved. And that was on Jimbo's staff. I'm sure Elko will have a couple of those. Most people have that. But they typically aren't going to be that person that say, hey, I'm going to stick here with you. I don't like my coaches or that, like, if there were guys that were going to leave, had Jimbo stayed. And most of these guys were leaving. I don't like my coaches. I don't know the new coach. I don't know. It's just a perfect chance for them to get out. And by the way, it's not just getting out anymore. It's getting out and getting a bag. It's getting out and getting a massive contract from somewhere. What'll be interesting to see is some of these kids that have left that could have signed to stay at A&M, what do they get elsewhere? And how many of them end up wishing they'd have stayed? How many of them go on visits and just want some cash on the side? I'm going to go take 3 or 4 visits and get $5,000 at this school, $10,000 at this school, $5,000. I mean, that's old school cheating, and I think now it's become 500 times worse because no one's doing anything about anything anymore. So people are smart, people are savvy, people are crafty. It doesn't mean you have to leave, but you can go. There's other things they could be looking at too. So, and to have like one guy there, here's the player liaison or somebody like that. I'm gonna pass up all this because me and him or her have good conversations. It's hard. And how do you really get tight like that with any coach other than your position coach or your recruiter? And even your recruiter, kind of once you get there, you're not in meetings with them. They're in meetings with their guys. You see, there's just not.
But maybe a guy that can, and I think they probably have this, but just maybe it needs to be emphasized more, can check in with these guys so often that those that are on the verge, right? Like we have other people. Or hey,
I agree with that.
Linebackers coach, pop your head in on the defensive line. Let's talk. Let's, you know what I'm saying? Like somebody who is more plugged in, who kind of understands the emotions of these guys to get other people involved.
There are always guys like that. I've seen guys in the last few years that have been like that at A&M. They're elsewhere. You got to have people in the building that have a feel for, hey, Dalton's a little dicey right now. You might want to talk to him. Zane, Kay and the girls were picking on him, and
feelings are hurt.
In the upstairs the other day, someone might need to talk to him. He's, like, you've got to have people. By the way, yes, that was intentional to lump those two, but you got to, you have to have somebody that has a feel for the pulse of not the football team per se, but the individual personalities and feelings and. All right, and David Nuño just got benched. Like, he lost his gig, or this kid's hurt. Is he feel like he's not a part of the team? Is he ignored? Like, hey, coach, we might have a problem with Nuño. He tore his hamstring, and he's kind of getting homesick. So, the good programs do that, and I'm going to give Elko the benefit of the doubt on that, and especially with the support staff you've already seen him bring over, that always, to me, is a good indicator that they're going to be generally on top of what's going on in the building. And I don't just mean as it pertains to football.
When programs, and obviously I'm talking about A&M, don't go all in to save somebody who goes into the portal, let's say, is that, depending on the situation, because they feel like they have a better option that might be coming in?
A million different reasons. It could be academics, where like, said player thought they were going to the NFL and just kind of mailed it in. And, man, is that guy even going to be eligible next year?
Right.
It could be we didn't get any vibe whatsoever that kid would even want to come back. And let's not waste our time. It could be, same along those lines. This kid's had a foot out the door since the day he got here. This is the 3rd time we're fighting it. I'm done. Some coaches could get to that point. Like, hey, I'm not begging this player to come back 3 years in a row. And it could be there's a position of, hey, the reality is there's a salary cap now in college football. Every team has one. They're all different. If one school's salary cap, this is the peak of it, and we can spend this much more, and then you want to leave, and I've got a pretty deep position there. Like, David's pretty good, but we got a few dudes. Like, I don't want to lose him, but he's asking for
I don't want to overpay him
$200,000, and if we lose a defensive lineman, then we can use that money and go get a cornerback, which is what we need worse. So those are reasons why, several different reasons why you could see teams decide not to pursue when a guy goes into the portal. So it'll be every time somebody goes in, it'll be a mixed bag. So some kids some kids that think they want to go in and in the back of their mind think we're going to leverage this for more money from A&M because that's where I want to be, and that's close to my family, or that's close to, I'm a starter, so that's where I want to be. Some of these dudes will play like a dangerous game and end up losing, and some of them will go out and get paid more because other programs are more desperate than A&M.
This weekend is a big weekend, right? Some guys are going to be visiting. Let's touch a little bit about that. I'm looking at some of the offers that are out there. I don't know who's coming into town this weekend fully, but that being said, could we see?
We have a list out.
Could we see some movement this weekend, you think, or is it more these introductory conversations?
No, I think you could, because I think they understand you're going to see movement around the country.
Yeah.
And you hope you don't see movement in, Eugene, Oregon, but you're going to see guys go, and these coaches are going to have a high sense of urgency to close some of these things out, including here at A&M. You're going to have a great sense of urgency, because if you don't, then they're going to be somewhere else the next weekend, and that portal closes up quicker than you think, So, yeah, I think you're going to see coaches around the country, including here, try to get guys locked in, committed, making announcements, canceling visits, doing whatever. So, I think next weekend you'll see more on that front than this weekend, though, as it pertains to A&M.
Priorities are the obvious ones: defensive backs, wide receivers, O-line.
I think
defensive line,
defensive backs. I think receiver, and I think linebacker still. Edgerrin Cooper's not coming back. You're very happy with Torian York, but name the other guy that's proven anything on this entire roster.
You need
that's a desperate need.
Yeah.
So they need linebackers, and they need obviously DBs, corner in particular, and obviously receiver. Now, I say receiver. Evan Stewart has not gone in the portal yet. I get reports that he doesn't intend to, but I also know it's a long couple weeks till the portal closes up. But if he were to stay, if Evan were to stay, and you go Evan and Moose and Noah, that's a hell of a starting out, and Ja'Day Walker.
Heck
That's
yeah.
a hell of a starting out unit. I still think you would still, because that position is so loaded out in the portal, I still think you go try to get a game breaker, and maybe somebody that fits into that. You also you do need to protect yourself as well. If we're being real, you need to do that. So I think receiver on to whatever level it ends up being, corner big time, linebacker big time, offensive line probably not as much as you think. It wouldn't surprise me to see them go out and get one. With a new position coach, you might have somebody that he really likes, or obviously if some great players go in.
Right.
But you lost Chase, so maybe you want to get some tackle depth. Yeah, but I'm saying you might want to get some tackle depth. You want to look and say, okay, you got Zune, you got Fathery, you got Crownover. You got other guys that can play it, but that's not enough. So probably need to go out and find you some tackle depth in the portal. And other than that, Nuño, I think you're looking at kind of an everything type of deal.
Just upgrade
Great
your talent.
pass rusher out there, go get him. Guy that can get you 8 to 12 sacks, hell yeah, get in on him. Go get him. Do everything you can to get the guy. If there's a real chance you could lose Walter Nolan and McKinley Jackson, you might lose Shamar Turner if he goes to the NFL. I think if Shamar Turner doesn't go to the NFL, I think he'll be a maroon and white next year. Don't get me wrong. But if he decides to go in the draft, you might lose a lot of really proven guys there. And I know there's some nice ones coming back, but you probably, to lose 3 like that, you probably need, and Isaiah Rakes is an older guy. You might need to go in the portal and say, okay, we got some guys, but we need to go get some more help there. So I could see the interior D-line ultimately being a position of need too. A lot of that will depend on what Nolan and Turner do.
Let's hit a break here. We'll have some questions for Liucci at the end of the hour, 979-693-1150. So I got a text from Holly today, and she told me to ask you about the Liucci. Tell me about the Liucci.
The burrito, handheld burrito at Costa Vida, which I'm a big fan of. I do it very plain.
Okay.
I do one thing in there that I'm not going to say on air because I don't want to cause them problems because it's very specialized, very picky and specific.
Very good.
Thank you, Holly and the gang over there. Let's just put it this way. I'm not a cilantro fan. Okay. I do the handheld burrito, which they really grill that tortilla very nicely. They run it through the griller. It's just perfectly done. I go chicken. I go black beans. You can do whatever kind of beans you want. But the Liucci is chicken, black beans, cheese on the inside with the red enchilada sauce.
Do you have to re-explain it every time, or do they know when you say,
Well, no, I
gotta
think
get
the
Liucci?
red enchilada sauce, cheese, chicken, black beans, rice. Wrap it up, roll it through. I get a little small side of their queso because it's so good.
Yeah.
What you could do, I think the official version of what we're talking about is going to have a little of that queso cheese inside of it as well.
Uh-huh. So those of you listening right now that are in the Brazos Valley, go to Costa Vida and order it. Holly's a great Aggie, 17.
Yeah, she is.
She's not only a great Aggie, she's awesome running the business, by the way. 4501.
They've got some amazing tres leches, too. Dalton got some. We got a free. Dalton's a part of the club. He's got the app, so he got a free birthday cake, and it was delicious.
They give you birthday cake for
They make
with the
it.
app?
They make it homemade in store. So try that too.
4501.
Sounds like I'm good at this.
You are very good at this, huh? Mills Park Circle in College Station, Aggie owner operated. It is Costa Vida in South College Station. Go check it out. We are back, TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Anaya Smith posted on Instagram 16 minutes ago, as my college career journey is coming to an end, I wanted to thank Coach Fisher and the staff for believing in me. I also wanted to thank Texas A&M University, the 12th man, and everyone who has supported me along the way. As many of you have heard, I will not be medically cleared to play in this year's bowl game after a recent surgery. However, I am honored to be asked to help coach the bowl game and excited to be with the team these next few weeks in any way possible. With that being said, I will be declaring for the 2024 NFL Draft. Sub-Zero out. Thank you, and gig 'em.
That's great. None of that surprised me with Anias. And if
All
there's
class.
one guy that would have been played in that game, it probably would have been him on this football team.
Mm-hmm.
Probably would have been him. And I don't think he'd care that. Man, my career started in this bowl game against Oklahoma State, where I was out there playing running back. It's going to end in the same building. But I think he would have said, hey, full circle, my hometown, I'm going to go out there and have another 100-yard game and have a victory lap in maroon and white, where I know it's my last game.
Right.
You know, I think he would have liked to have done that. So good for him, and he's going to, like you said, he's going to help coach. And they might need it. They don't have a receivers coach. I mean, they've got guys that are qualified to teach receivers on that staff right now. You know, and the Coley can do it. You have I think it'll probably be Coley. You've got an analyst GA there and Spurlock that's had to fill in and coach tight ends before, and he's done that. I forget if that was during COVID. There were some weird times that people didn't even realize where certain coaches didn't coach games in the last few years. You know, one game during the COVID season, Josh Henson wasn't there to coach offensive line, and A&M played without an O-line coach, and they won. And I think it was might have been like Tennessee, like it was an important game. I think it was not this year, but last year, Dazio missed a game or two with a health concern, and I believe for whatever reason, maybe that was between coaches. It might have been. In fact, I think it was a bowl game, something similar to this, where a tight ends coach left or something, and Spurlock coached the tight end. So I think it'll be like that. But Anias helping out's terrific. It's cool. It's a good story. We'll probably see a lot of him on game day there at NRG, and it's cool. It doesn't surprise me though with him. And look, he put off the NFL once, decided to come back, played 4 games, got hurt, thought about going again, put it off. This is a long time coming for him. And in the day and age that we're in, the week that we're seeing so many guys just jump ship, run to the portal, he did not do that. I think he did a great job with. Here's a young guy that always kept a chip on his shoulder, always competed, always played hard, always showed up in big games. Took advantage of NIL and the perfect timing for him. But when I say took advantage, I mean capitalize. I don't mean, took advantage of the system. I mean, he benefited from NIL like he should have. So he's like a success story on that front. A lot of people were happy to have him represent them around here and in Houston. And now, he's going out, I think, as one of these Aggie legends. And people are always going to welcome him back, and he's always going to have the support of the 12th man and the A&M fan base. So great for him, and I hope he goes to the league and makes a hell of a lot of money.
Download the TexAgs app, by the way. Just got an alert that Olin's column on Sub-Zero is already up. So, boom, I got the alert. So we got a lot of new people who've been listening and watching.
Is it a column or is it just a blurb?
Probably
just a column, I'd like to read it.
Sub-Zero and Anias Smith will enter 2024 draft. I don't know. It's a nice write-up, though, a substance, so I'll certainly check that out. Let's hit a break here, Billy.
Okay.
There's people in all caps are asking certain questions that I don't think we can necessarily get into it. But
I'm not giving the DC name.
No, I know
there's not
that.
one.
No, but
and there wasn't one last night when a name started floating, and there wasn't one a week ago when a name started floating, and there wasn't one. Blah blah blah.
But we can talk coaching staff and how the early returns are on some of the guys on staff right now.
Absolutely.
All right. His voice got real quiet, so is mine. We'll be back. It's TexAgs Radio. Some people like to be negative, buddy.
What would people do if they shut Twitter down? The more I think about
mental health would be better.
Maybe Elon, it would, for real. But I'll tell you one thing about mental health. One thing, that battle that the people trying to destroy mental health are not winning is the war these Longhorns are trying to wage on me. They pull up tweets. I think every day they find one.
Why do they have fun doing that?
I don't know. I mean, whatever. But when you say a lot, you'll throw it back in your face. But to me, it's funny, and to me, it's borderline flattering. They think they're making fun. I'm like, you guys haven't stopped. They're literally going to the college football playoff, and have not stopped thinking about me in their certain ones. In their tweets, their quote tweets, it's wild to me. But I like it. Keep doing it. I'm watching my followers go up, which ultimately I guess helps the brand.
Yeah.
Keep doing it. I mean, yeah. I was super high on Jimbo when they hired him. I was super high on.
So was all of college football.
I was super high coming off a top 5 finish in year 3, which is the same thing Texas is doing right now in year 3 under Sark and going crazy. They got into the playoff. A&M should have. Maybe if Trevor Lawrence would have broken his leg in week 8, that would have happened. Probably not. They probably would have put Clemson in there with their backup. But look, and guess what? I still think that Sark hire was a real roll of the dice.
And it's working.
It is, and it's had a lot of help. An awful Big 12 and going into the SEC for 2 years and being able to recruit off it while playing the Big 12
schedule. Yeah.
I know they beat Alabama this year, so that's great for them, but still a Big 12 schedule week in and week out. And NIL came at the perfect time. If you're going to go 5-7, lose 6 in a row, you better crank up the NIL machine. And guess what? It's not like there's nothing wrong with any of that. That's just how it worked out. Factually, that's how it worked out, and it's worked out great. Factually, for A&M, Jimbo Fisher got them right to the cusp. A&M got themselves into a bad contract in terms of the fully guaranteed. I don't think the raise and extension, there's nothing wrong with that. And they couldn't get over the hump. And they couldn't do it. And they were doing NIL. They signed a great class. Everything was lined up for A&M too. Don't get me wrong. And by the way, the last 2 years in the SEC, I don't think A&M played a lot of great football teams. I think they're a lot better schedule-wise week in and week out than the Big 12, and I think Texas and OU are going to realize that. But they have not faced a murderer's row gauntlet that they couldn't have at least gone 9-3, 10-2 these last 2 years with the talent they have. They could have done a lot better, but I'm saying you could go 9-3, 10-2 in the last 2 years and win bowl games and be sitting at 21-5 over a 2-year stretch. Go back to the previous season where they were 9-1. You can be sitting at 30-6 over 3, and you wouldn't have a lot of really impressive skins on the wall. You could get through these last 2 years of schedules without maybe one significant win a season. That's how easily navigatable it was. You could have maneuvered through that, and they didn't do it. So my point, though, is I think that was a dice roll of a hire that's worked out. I think Jimbo Fisher was a low-risk hire with a ton of upside that did not work out as we look back on it. But, yeah, so, I mean, pull up the retweets. Pull up the quote tweets. Let's go. Every single day, hit me with them. Keep talking about me.
So
I might even be in Houston. I won't be wearing burnt orange, though. I don't know who I'll be rooting for.
This may upset you, but I think it'll allow us to just have a moment to kind of calm people.
Me.
I don't know if it will.
Let's go.
The longer this goes without a defensive coordinator being named, the more we look like we're getting turned down. We'll have to take our 4th or 5th option.
Stupid.
Kids don't think
Dumb
that way.
Statement. Uninformed. And your voice might have changed my opinion of that text. Read it in a normal voice.
Okay. The longer this goes without a defensive coordinator being named, the more it looks like we're getting turned down, and we'll have to take our 4th or 5th option.
I understand what you're saying, but I will respectfully disagree and tell you you're dead ass wrong on that. Because there's They're not on a fourth or fifth option. I think in a dream world, you would have got Fuller from Florida State based on what their defense did this year and the pop that would come with that, and plus just to hit those FSU Seminoles. And I've got a couple friends down there in Tallahassee. Hi, folks. But that would have been the home run in the moment, boom. And Fuller was certainly a guy that A&M kicked the tires on, and that turned into a big raise from FSU. Some would say it's because A&M was kicking the tires on him. I would say it probably has more to do with the season the Florida State defense had and how elite that group is. But if you think Elko's going fourth or fifth option, you don't understand Mike Elko. Do I think the sooner the better in terms of a DC hire? Yes, absolutely. Do I think he'll have one hired within 2 weeks of being introduced for the job? Yes. It's not like this is going to take forever. If you remember, Mike Elko came on after bowl games, Jimbo's first year. And I think you'll see Elko have a DC, like I said, within the first 2 weeks of having the job. If not by today, tomorrow, by the end of the weekend. So it's not him going to a fourth and fifth option. It's actually him trying to figure out what his options are. And this is a guy that's going to be very particular when it comes to who he hires, and he's got some things to think through. He's got to think, am I going to give it to someone that's experienced enough that I'm just going to hand it over to, and I'm going to be the head coach? Or have I found an up-and-coming rising star or two that if I pick one of them, I'm kind of going to wade a little bit back into it, not necessarily on game day, but a little more so than I had planned, because I really believe this guy is a rock star in the profession. I've studied what he's doing. I really love it. I think that's the question is, who's Elko's 1 and 2 options? Which guys? Because I know this. I know with certainty that he, as of yesterday, he hadn't been turned down. Maybe Fuller as a guy who, like I said, I bet they certainly kicked the tires. Probably. I think if anyone turned him down, it would be Fuller. Like, in my opinion, he was a guy that they absolutely targeted, just like anyone with a DC job right now would do that had the money to make it happen. That I would bet anything I had that's it. So if you think fourth or fifth option, maybe say they went after the hottest DC in the game, and they've got another group of guys that Mike Elko's trying to pick out of. And of that group, I don't think there's a name in that group that will turn him or A&M down. By the way, if you're a D coordinator right now, and what a better spot to come to.
Sure.
In terms of the talent you're going to have, even without Walter Nolan or Tyreek Chappelle or Fadil Diggs, the talent you're going to have playing in this league, the recruiting base, and to play for a defensive head coach like Mike Elko that you know is going to appreciate that side of the ball more so than most, but also is a guy that's going to, they're going to play football in such a way that it's going to look out for the defense. You're not going to be, this is not a up-tempo, try to get to 90 plays as fast as we can offense and practice spread out and nobody tackles in practice and does all that. We don't worry about fundamentals. You're going to a real place where they're going to play real defense and preach it day in and day out.
By the way, I don't look at things when a guy gets a raise because of interest from another school. I don't really feel like that's a shot at A&M. I look at that as just business, part of the game, right? Yeah. Like a shot to me, like, oh, they turned you down, is like they don't get the raise and they don't want to come.
There's always, every job every year, you're going to go try to make a hire in coordinators, head coach, everything. It's just like head coach. A&M kicked the tires on Dan Lanning and Dan Campbell.
Understanding how long of a shot it was. Right.
Yeah. Now, I think a guy like Fuller would be worth, presenting an offer to, because if I'm not mistaken, he was making like $1.2 million at Florida State, maybe even less. So that's one where you step into the batter's box and take a swing. But there are those guys at the very top on either side of the ball or at the head coaching spot that you're probably not going to get, but you got to go take a swing at them. It's not. It is what it is. Now, Denbrock, LSU fans wouldn't believe this and don't want to hear it. Some A&M fans have gotten into such a self-loathing pit. It's like they're in this pit. It's just this tar pit of self-loathing, and there's certain people, we may never see them again. They're just floating around down there. It's like you can't get out until you stop self-loathing, and then when they do, they just kind of whoop and pop up to the top, and maybe we can rescue them. But they're all in there right now, so they don't want to hear this either. And they can't because they're in the tar pit, so their ears are filled up with tar, so they're not listening. We're okay. But Denbrock would have taken the job at the finish line. Mike Elko went a couple days ago, whenever it was. He met with Colin Klein in Colorado several hours while recruiting, coming back and recruiting some more that same day. He went off into East Texas and Bronny's neck of the woods. And I think from that second on, that was who he was hiring, and it was up to Colin Klein to, say yes, which he did. I think late that night. Was it late Tuesday night?
Sounds
Tuesday
right.
Night
Tuesday night.
I forget which night. Late at night, took the gig.
It's Tuesday night.
So anyway, there you go.
Anyway, we'll set a break.
D coordinator search is interesting though, because I'm not going to say much. Never mind. We'll write some stuff.
How about just whet the appetite? Just a tiny, just
David,
a little bit.
Radio is live radio for people that are not subscribed.
Yeah.
Subscribe.
That's why I said just a little, like.
I've whet the appetite with that whole conversation.
Okay.
But the problem in 2023 is if I say something on here, even the slightest hint,
good point,
people go crazy. And with one of these candidates, my hint, I just feel like whatever I would say would give it away.
All right, so become a premium subscriber right now.
I'll say this: I like the guy at SMU that everyone's talking about right now. I don't think he was a candidate in terms of like people are saying he's the guy yesterday. That's not true. I'm not ruling out that he won't come into play, because like I said, Elko's looking at a lot, and he's looking at guys at different levels. He's looking at proven guys. They're all from what I've gathered, they're all generally young. He's looking at proven guys, and then he's also kind of, I think, pretty intrigued by a couple of these young, really rapid risers in the game. And there's more than just one.
Couple names. See, that's all I wanted. Just that. That was it. That's it. It wasn't that hard. I got you. Radio audience, TV audience, YouTube audience. All right, let's hit a break. When we come back, if you got a question for Billy, send it on the text line or on YouTube or on TexAgs.com. 979-693-1150. Final segment of today's TexAgs Radio presented by David Garner's Jewelers. Power of Love here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Hannah, I know we got a couple questions for young Billy Liucci.
I'm sure we do.
Oh, hello.
Sorry, I have
Cheerio.
all kinds of allergies right now. Bayou Ag says, can you explain why Fathery didn't play this year?
He was coming back from injury, pretty much.
That injury was worse than I think. The recovery was tougher than I think originally expected. They knew it was significant. It sucks because it happened right at the end of spring ball, and I think it was rough for Fathery and it was rough for Chase Basantes. And I think Chase, had he been able to come in redshirt, play as things built up, would have been nice. He was so good in camp, and he was really going to push Fathery regardless. He was that good in the spring and in camp. But we saw him kind of hit that true freshman wall sometime around Bama/Tennessee. Things started to get rough for true freshmen. I actually sat in here with him, and we, before doing an interview, talked, and I could tell, it was affecting him in terms of a true freshman. I kind of talked to him about Luke Jokel and Jake Matthews as true freshman, Kenyon Green. But in a perfect world, Deuce would have been healthy, and he's not even healthy, but just what they thought was he was going to kind of start off fall camp, ramp up on the way through camp, and then maybe, if Chase could have got you through September, if he was playing great, that's his spot. If he wasn't, maybe that's about the time you could have seen Deuce, a healthy Deuce coming in. So hopefully he's all the way back and gets all the way back. He will be for next year, but I think we did a little disservice not talking about what a loss that was.
Sure.
But a healthy Deuce. An injured Deuce out there wouldn't have been in my opinion, wouldn't have been any better. And you'd not only put him in harm's way, but done him a disservice too, because there probably would have been a lot of misleading tape out there for him as well.
Hannah, I know we got one from Rockwall.
Yeah. He says, hey, Billy, Jackson from Rockwall. Curious about what aspects or strengths not only Elko is looking for in a defensive coordinator, but what you would like to see in terms of a defensive hire.
In this league, I still love 4 down as your base defense, like even front for sure. I love aggressive because you can't. I like a DC that if it's 3rd and 12, you don't know if they're blitzing the house or if they're going to sit back in coverage. I don't like a coach that does too much of either. I like the coach that keeps teams guessing. I think you have to be in a quarter. I like a defensive coordinator that's in a quarterback's head. You have to be. You cannot let a QB in this conference with the weapons at receiver. You can't let quarterbacks get comfortable. I'd like a DC that has proven at whatever stops in whatever conference. I don't care if it's the, Big Ten, Pac-12, ACC, Group of 5. I don't care. I want to see a coach that's proven that he can handle tempo and that spread up tempo offense that you're going to see more and more in the SEC moving forward. As you start looking at these coaches and these teams that A&M is going to play, we could sit here and waste a couple minutes just naming them one after the other. I mean, just on next year's schedule, you see teams like Texas, you see Hugh Freeze and Auburn, you see Ole Miss isn't on the schedule anymore, but there's Ole Miss. Oklahoma's going to do it. Mississippi State with Lebby now. One by one, you look at it and you go, this is just where it's headed. So I'd like to see a guy with a track record of, these teams have thrown this at him, and he's done a really good job against them. That's for Elko to decide, too, because I don't think necessarily the stat sheet and the box scores show that. It's just like when you watch the game, how are they handling that tempo?
Right.
Are they getting gashed for periods of time? And then, so that would be one of my big things, too, that he's had heavy exposure to that style of offense and had some success against it.
Got a minute left. Aggie basketball, big game this weekend with Memphis. They need it. They really need it.
I mean, it's a long season. I don't ever put too much onto one game, but it would be really nice for them to win that one at home. They've had some good games, really good road wins. If they can make it through this conference schedule without a home loss, that would be really nice as well. And Memphis will be a nice win. At the end of the day, when Memphis finishes their season in their conference, that'll be a nice win. And, yeah, go out there and beat a good basketball team. And they've got U of H in another week, and you'd love to see them rolling into that with confidence.
Thank you, Billy.
All right, buddy.
Appreciate you. All right, that's going to do it for TexAgs Radio here on Friday. We'll see you guys on Monday. Thanks so much for watching and listening. We'll see you then.